solving new challenges. The digital economy is evolving at an unprecedented rate, increasingly impacting our daily lives. Big data, machine learning, and AI are at the center of this technological revolution, solving new challenges every day. Competition is increasing. Organizations need to hire and retain premium talent, while customers demand higher standards of experience and value. At the same time, the economic and geopolitical future is unpredictable. What the world looks like today could be different tomorrow. Despite this uncertainty, the world's unbanked population is growing and looking for innovative ways to meet their financial ambitions wherever, whenever. In order to triumph, keep market share, and outrun disruptive business models, every player in every industry must have the eagerness to innovate. The victors will be those who harness the data-driven economy and turn it into simple, convenient, and accessible services.
The victory belongs to you, the pioneers, and your contributions every day, everywhere.
I build algorithms to help credit-worthy customers get more access to credit.
I try to push boundaries to help execute business plans that allow teams to take risk.
I listen to merchants' query, analyze their issue, and help them within 4 hours.
मैं रखता हूं इनकी सुरक्षा का ख्याल।
I offer innovative solutions to merchants for simplifying their payment processes.
I'm a pioneer.
मैं हूं एक pioneer.
I am a pioneer.
I am a pioneer.
Fantastic, fantastic. So a very, very warm welcome to all of you to the first Pioneers event being held in India, one of many, right? This is probably one of the many events that we'll hold in India, and you're very, very warm welcome to all of you for this, okay? Before I go forward, I understand that some of you probably got up earlier than you used to, right? So I want to raise the energy levels for this room. Can everybody in this room stand up? Like everybody. Yeah? Close your eyes. Don't go to sleep. Okay? Take a deep breath. In, out. In, out. In, out. In, out. For the last time, in, out. Open your eyes, but don't sit yet. All right? Take your first time, point it this way, whichever sense you can make of it. Put your other hand this way, and pull with this hand. And look the other way. Slowly, yeah? Don't dislodge your shoulder and stuff. Yeah? Okay, other arm. This way. Yeah? One more time, the other arm. Back again, other arm. Fantastic, take a seat. How many feel like these guys are getting the maximum exercise they will get in the entire year? इससे ज़्यादा नहीं मिलने वाला है. All right. So yeah, like I said, very, very warm welcome to all of you from different offices, different locations. We've got people from everywhere, and that's exciting for us. Are you excited? Yes. Really? Yes. Okay. Get more beer for Manish. Come on, guys. Are you excited at the back? Yes. One more time, louder. Yay! Very good. They can get alcohol. Okay. So before I tell you what this event is about and what we'll be doing across the entire day, let's start with getting a sense from you what you expected from this event. So before this event, there was a survey sent out to a whole bunch of you, and there's some interesting answers which came back. Let's go through them. We'll give us some context what you expect from this event. So typical things, 2/3 of you made it from traffic across Gurgaon, 1/3 from Mumbai. Yeah, good job. Congratulations on that. 60% of you are just coming here for drinks. Really? This was the question? Okay. Other expectations, fun expectations and serious expectations from this entire day. Great evening party. Okay. You got understanding more on the future vision of the company. Right, thank you for that. Fun is catching up with all of you under one roof. Great. And looking forward to some challenging thinking around the future of fintech in India and how we will innovate for the same. Wow. Then we've got seeing Manish dance solo on stage. That Manish, right? Okay, okay, good. So you're on demand, Manish. We also had to meet new people, to dance a lot, and have some really meaningful conversations. Fantastic. So I think you're on the board with what expectations are. If Manish agrees, then you'll get the other one as well. So we'll see with that. We also wanted to say that we are very focused towards your careers, which is why we asked this question as well. We asked you, what did you want to be when you were a child? And to see if that matches pretty much with what you're doing right now. So we got things like, you wanted to be an astronaut, and then you wanted to be a pilot, or a restaurant owner. There was somebody who wanted to be a cricketer, air hostess, and this is, I think, the most innovative of all, big businessman. Needless to say, all of these ending at PayU is the right career progression. Right? Yeah, this is a magically divine intent for you. So fantastic. Okay. Now, also to understand what's PayU for you, right? The reason that you guys turned up, you said 60% alcohol, which is okay, but I'm sure PayU means more than that to you as well. So that was a question as well. Some said, PayU is an extended family for me. I should tell your wife about that. A lot like 18th and 19th century America, it's wild, unlawful, free for all, but the place that could actually see you becoming successful in your career if you are cowboy enough. Wow. Hands up, man. So whosoever did this, you should get into poetry. This is really good stuff. Prashant, stop taking credit for everything. Yeah. Okay. Then we had PayU is a leader of next wave of growth and innovation in the country. We've got PayU is the most dynamic place to work or have worked till now. Wow. A platform through which my dreams can come to reality. Okay, so very good stuff. Okay. So a good set of expectations, a good energy, good positive feelings that you're coming to this session with. But I want to set expectations in terms of what we're doing across a couple of hours today as well. Right? So let me start with first saying this is not a party. Right? Okay, it's somewhat a party. Okay. But it's a serious, serious affair. Okay? You are brought here. Those of you who are seated here and those of you who are in workplace, all of you have been brought into this event for a serious, serious piece of work. Okay, and what is a serious piece of work? Two sides to it. The first side is to appreciate the fantastic journey that we are on. Yeah? You are working for a leader in payments. You're working with a fintech which is extremely ambitious, well-funded, doing some really interesting, innovative stuff, building products and services for our customers across India. This is a really, really exciting story to be part of. Not only that, you are part of a startup culture, a culture which truly lives what it means to be a startup. We are not hierarchical, we are not stuck up in any ways, we are flexible, we are all about being dynamic and building interesting things. So you're part of a very interesting story. Now, this story will get even more interesting as we go forward, and we'll have Amrish speak about that in a few minutes. But to make this story about winning, and to make this story about more fun for all of us, there's a concept of values which comes into play. Do you guys know what values mean? So coming on time for conference, value. Jatin, I seriously did not see you coming in. So I would say you well timed it, I did not. So values mean something to you, right? Personal values, family values, but the values in conjunction to everything you do in life, and work is just one part of it. So there's a lot of thinking which has been done by teams across PayU. When I say across PayU, it's globally. To think about what are some of the values which should be very intrinsic to us, which should be a clear focus for us for the next few years to make this journey fun and for us to really enjoy what we're doing. Yeah? And this day will be about embracing some of these different values. So that's an expectation setting in terms of what's coming for you. Yeah, two things. Relish the journey, appreciate the journey where we are and what we have today for us, and then the values which will take us forward from there. Two things around that. Great. Now, I have some logistic stuff to go through for you guys to get a sense of the agenda and some operational things to keep in mind. The first part is what are the sequence of events that we'll be going through today. We'll have Amrish speak for a few minutes, give us some good understanding of where we're going at. We'll have a panel which talks about payments. We'll have a customer give us a sense of what their expectations are from us. Then we'll have a panel which talks about credit. Then we will get into doing some hardcore work at one point of time. Somewhere between this, you will have lunch. Okay? And then in the evening, we will bring this all together with alcohol. Right? So that's pretty much the agenda of this. Whatever we are doing here will be live streamed on Workplace, and it's happening right now, which means it's not just the people seated over here, but people on the Workplace live stream as well, who are part of this journey. So please keep interacting. When I say keep interacting, there will be mics available for everybody over here. So if you have a question at any point of time, please ask for the mic. This will be interesting for you and relevant for you if you participate. So participation is key for that. Other things to watch out for, we have Kanika and Puneet. Kanika and Puneet, please raise your hands. Yeah, so that's Kanika. Puneet is somewhere. Their job is to catch your impressions and the vibe of the event. They'll be going around with the camera, making sure that they're capturing interesting moments for you. So please collaborate with them, participate, don't turn around when they come near you. Okay. Those on Workplace, the way for you to ask questions is you put in your comments on that link. Right? And it's our responsibility to make sure that your questions are voiced to the speakers here. So that's the way that is going to work. Okay. Lunch will be around 1. We'll see how it goes. A very important rule, this is the personal rule for any event that I host, or for this one as well. Guys, keep your mobile phones first off the tables, like now, off the tables, and preferably laptops as well. Just the fact that you have seats at the back doesn't mean your laptop should be open and you're tinkering away. I'm sure you have important emails, but they can wait. There's a lot of time and effort invested by the organizing team and the management and everybody else to get you here and make this event happen. So let's have you make this event happen as well. So keep that in mind, please. The last very important point on this is be here and be on time. All right, so we manage, 10, 20 to have you guys over here. But it's very important for the next sessions. Whenever we request you, please be there. Otherwise, it'll be very hard for us to manage, and the further off your party is going to be. Okay, so be very clear about that. So be here, be on time, and for the speakers, I'll give you some context around that. All right, so this is the plan, the setup for today. Let's start with the first session. The first session is we will have Amrish to give us some context and vision on where we're heading. Thank you, Amrish. Can I request you please to come on stage? Big hand, guys, big hand. All right, before Amrish starts off and sets up, you wanted you to get a bit more context on Amrish than things that you already know, right? CEO, very smart guy, loves sports. There's some other things that I'm going to tell you about him as well. So we posed a set of questions to Amrish, and the first question we posed to him is that, what keeps you up at night? Right? And the answer is poker, poker, and poker.
That's not true.
All right, so this is what Amrish actually said. He said, our response to UPI and the opportunity for broader fintech play in India, that's what keeps him up at night. What would he like to see change in the world? So he said, I feel that it's once in a lifetime opportunity where we are seeing the death of paper cash and the digitalization of payments. Just feel excited to be part of that change. Wow. The next one, what's the one thing we should know about you before we hear you speak at the PayU Day? So I told you a couple, there's one more. I really like this saying, and I think I will steal this, Amrish, sorry. He says, I believe tomorrow will be better than today. Right? I find that inspiring. The last part, what are you most proud of in your non-corporate life? So he's extremely proud of the sports journey that his son is going through, and having partnered in that, having facilitated that sports journey. And at this moment, he's especially proud of the fact that his son is wearing an India team t-shirt. Yeah. With that, I get off the stage and off the floor, and Amrish, the stage is yours.
Ambar, thank you. Guys, this is so exciting, right? I must admit that I came in to this event wanting to talk about the values and wanting to meet up with you and talk about the pioneer and the pioneer story here. That start which Ambar gave actually made me come up with a further 10 new points which I wanted to share with you. Went back to Rahil, said, Rahil, I need an extension in my time because I think I've got lots to speak about here. So before my slides actually take off, Rahil, I'm actually going to go extempore. Yeah, sorry. So really, I think just sitting out there for the first 5 minutes, seeing the video absolutely blew me away. I just felt so excited to see that simple video out there. Talked about the usual things, what we do in our lives, right? But I just really think that this is coming together of a really long journey. Yeah. What I mean by that is we are doing what is called as Pioneers Day. We are doing what, in my head, I'm just thinking about this as the first PayU Day in India, and just bringing along 150 of you guys into this room, I think is just an exciting thing to do. We started off about 2 years back on this journey which said, you know what, PayU is going to become a little bit of a hang-loose kind of a company. We're going to enjoy each other's time. We're going to enjoy being with each other. Started going out a bit more, started to hang out a little bit more outside of office hours. And really, when I look at, you know, what the team has put together out here for this room, just brings about tremendous excitement. I think we are really moving in the right direction. This is just a feeling that I had, but really what happened last week was just unbelievable. So last week, we were sitting in Amsterdam, and in Amsterdam, for me, this was like a repeat of a bad dream which I went through about 2 years back. But 2 years back, you know, Shailash, Jiten and I, we actually went to Amsterdam, and they decided to put up the employee engagement survey results in front of all the senior leaders there. I'm telling you, it was such an embarrassing one, right? It was such an embarrassing one. You know, coming back out of that meeting, I just felt like, guys, there's so much more that we have to do to get together. So this time they had actually warned us and they said that, you know what, we're going to share the employee engagement report and the survey report and how that stands and how different countries have done. I must admit the three of us were literally looking at each other and wondering, saying that, guys, what's going to come out of this engagement report here? And when that went up on the screen, PayU India came up with the best results across the world. So the India team actually gave outputs on the engagement survey which was better than any other country out there. And I'm sorry, Amber, but I'm actually going to tell you what I read out there. And you know, they, for those of you who can see it, they put out a grid which had different countries by the column, and then they had different attributes on which they were being graded by the employees. And we had a situation where, and they said that 60 and above is good. Anything below 60 is like, you got to figure it out what you're doing, right? And we had teamwork ownership at 85, we had company confidence at 84, and we had involvement and alignment at 88. There was a whole host of them which were above 70%. And really what you could feel out there is you just could feel proud of the journey that we have gone through over the last 2 years' time. And really I think, you know, in a way, I'm really appreciative of the answer what you guys have written out there, which says that why we all here, we are here to have alcohol, right? The reason why we are here is because we want to hang out with each other. We want to discuss stuff with each other. We want to really figure out where is PayU headed, why do we do certain things, what can we do more, and how can we make this a more exciting place for us to work here. And that's exactly what these events are. Of course, while we are at this and while we go through this process, we're going to understand what are the values on which PayU is going to get built here. So look, I think this is the right spirit in which we have all got together, we have all come together. Let's continue it for the full day. I'm actually going to say, don't be on the phone purely because this is a day which is really not for you. This is a day for the colleagues that you work with, understanding who they are and working with them together here. So give it that day. Let's enjoy the day among each other, and I'm sure it's going to be a good one. With that, I go to my formal presentation here. So this is a presentation which I had actually made to the PayU global leadership and all the senior members of PayU. And this is a chart which I really like, and this looks at the journey of world economy from 00 to 2017. And if you look at it, you will recognize that China and India for the longest possible time have been the biggest drivers of world GDP. And this graph on this axis has not been drawn to proportion. So you would see that almost till the 18th century, we actually had China and India completely dominating world trade. And as you would know, that coincided with a certain period in our history where we started to see our GDP's share in world economy shrink. And that has continued for the last, I would say, close to about 150 years or so. What is really interesting for me is right at the end, if you can see it, while China has clearly expanded that over the last 30 years' time, we are starting to see this gradual expansion coming out of India. And we do believe, based on every report that we have in front of us, that we should get back to a situation where India will continue to have a significant portion of the GDP. And why do I share this and how does this relate to us? We've got to remember a few things, right? This is going to be the world's, it's going to be one of the top 3 biggest GDPs in the world. Second, this is already one of the biggest internet markets anywhere. It's actually now consuming data much more than what US is consuming data. When you look at the online internet users which are coming on board, that's faster than what is happening in the US. And of course, in the English speaking world, we are way ahead. It's just China which is ahead of us right now. So that's second part. And the third part out here is the digitalization of currency is happening at a crazy, crazy pace here. So the growth of digital payments has been just fantastic. For us, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity here. And I say this to you now today, but I say this to myself for the last 15 years. I'm actually heard this thing for the last 15 years when I've been saying this, but I feel excited every time when I say this that we are actually living history here. We have this unique opportunity that we are working in the industry which is going through massive, massive change. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity and we are the leaders of it. Can you imagine if we were working for a tire company? Can you imagine if we were working for a steel company, how boring our lives could be? We are in the biggest GDP, we are in the biggest internet market, and we are in the hottest sector, which is around e-commerce and digital payments. And we're getting to see that everywhere around us, right? We've actually seen that based on some of the initiatives which the government has put together, and the transaction volumes have really, really exploded. So you have a situation where the macros are in favor of the country. We have a government which is in favor. We have the consumer population which is just at the right age level. There's nothing which can stop India and can stop the whole digital payments transformation that India is going to go through. And of course, these are just some of the enabling initiatives. I think I should have taken this out here. This is fast going out of the picture. But on that, over the last 10 days, you'll be surprised the number of fintech entrepreneurs who are now talking about Aadhaar and what will happen to e-KYC is not funny. I hope we get to a right point around it. Outside of that, I think this government is completely committed to drive some of these initiatives for digitalization of payments. UPI, just some amazing statistics. They reach 400 million transactions. I'm not kidding you. This does bother me, and it bothers me big time. Rahul, you should be knowing about this, right? I've spoken to you hundreds of times. How we react to UPI and what we will do in terms of innovating on UPI is going to be super critical. Srinivas, hear me, man. Abhishek, hear me. We have to do more on the UPI front because that's the single biggest change. I have today moved to about 30% of my transactions online onto UPI, or wherever I see UPI, I use UPI for my payment transaction. We need to start doing more in that space. What we are also getting to see is some really interesting enabling projects out there. So I don't know if you all caught this one, but this is a very interesting one where the government is right now thinking about giving 20% as cashback on the GST, provided the transactions have been done using QR code. Basically, what the government is saying is that the cash-based payment transactions that you all are doing, if you can just quickly move it on to QR, we will actually incentivize you for that. It's not known very well, but the government has made many attempts to actually try and incentivize digital payments. And when I say not known, is not known to us or maybe not known into our financial books right now in terms of what direct benefits we are getting, but the consumers are certainly getting benefits. So on Beam, there was a very interesting program that they ran, and I think the government ended up spending about 1,000 crores on that program. Similarly, you will see a lot more programs which will come out of the government to support. On this QR, I'm just going to lace this with an idea. One of the biggest initiatives that we are going to do over the next 12 months' time is going to be into QR. Again, I'm just going to roll back 2 years. 2 years back, here we were standing and saying, let's not do this, let's not do this, let's not do this, let's just focus on payments. But 2 years later, we've got one of the best credit products out there, and we are also going to start this entire new journey around QR and offline payments on QR, and I'm sure at some point in time, Shelaz is going to talk about it later in the day. What is interesting is that while this change is happening, we are also getting to see that different players are coming into the sector. So what we have is, we have very interestingly a telco which wants to become a fintech player, a mobile recharge company which has already turned around into becoming a fintech player, an e-commerce company which wants to become a fintech player. the lines between who does what and how the evolution of payments or evolution of fintech will happen, I think has got completely blurred. I think that is right now being explored by different people. Now, while that is happening, I just want to share with you some very interesting facts, right? Interesting facts out there is between Paytm, Airtel Bank, and which is the third bank which got launched? Not India Post. Between these three payments bank, they have total of 500 crores with them as deposits. 500 crores is so ridiculously low, I can't even begin to explain to you. You know, just to put this into context, you know, the Sector 31 Gurgaon branch of State Bank of India would have more deposits than 500 crores. And we have here all of the payment banks deposits put together. It is right now in the region of 500 crores. So what the consumers are telling you is, consumers are saying that I believe where my money is, it's in a good place. However, for transactions I need help. I'm going to come to other fintech players for looking for help while I do my transactions. So we are getting to see that while people are rushing to fintechs, the old ideas around deposits and holding money are not working. The common ideas around deposits and holding money is not working. The old ideas are working, which says, where does the money lie? The money lies actually in transactions. So in a way, where we are is really the sweet spot where we are right in the middle of the transaction. How can we monetize more? How can we do more on the transaction side? This is the breakup in terms of UPI transactions by different players. As you all know, we don't have a play in the space of UPI. And without mincing words, I'm going to tell you why that is the case. The reason why we don't have a play in UPI is we don't believe we have a very strong flywheel which can drive consumers directly into an app of ours. If that is the case, every consumer acquisition that you would do, the cost would be just enormously high. Trust me, we spend a lot of hours thinking about ways in which we could get in millions of consumers coming onto our platform. The day we find an idea of that kind, I'm sure we'll go into consumer transaction space. Till that time, the hottest area that we find is around credit, and we do want to play in credit, and that's the one that we are really putting a farm behind when it comes to consumer payments. But this is just covering about what's happening in the market and who's leading in different areas. So again, just summing up what I'm trying to say, we are living in the best economy, we are living in the best times, we are living in a market which is exploding, and the money in that market is really around transactions. Guess what? Who leads in the transaction space? There is nobody out there which beats us in the transaction space. Of course, we don't have the offline space, but we've got to go after the offline space. We will go after the offline space. All of you guys must have told these stories to so many of your customers and friends. I don't need to tell you about how good we are with some of our merchants. This is a very interesting slide that we actually put up last year to convince the global management of PayU around this whole strategy for credit. And what we put up on those days was, we said, guys, if you want to play in credit, you ideally just don't want to be a distributor of credit. What you want to do is you want to be a part of the credit cycle, you want to be a part of the risk cycle, and if you can be a part of the risk cycle, you can build a significant business. So if you look at it, in India, credit is completely broken, and the access to credit available to common Indians is extremely low. Really, guys, keep your eyes open in terms of what's happening over the last 2 weeks with the NBFC sector. What you're going to realize is that some of these NBFC sectors have gone into serious stress. What that means is their financials have tightened up. They are going to pass more cost on to the consumer. Credit is going to become even more difficult for the end consumer. So this growth is going to come, but I'm saying it's a slow-paced growth. We need to play in this space. One of the things that we talk about quite a bit in the credit business is that in credit, it's not about the speed of growth. In credit is about how prudent you are, how can you mix between growth as well as the risk which comes on our financials. Jiten presented this as an unbelievable dream, and I've got to tell you this another very interesting story, and I'm going to say it the way it sounds, right? we go through very funny interactions, within our organization. And when I say we, is the Jiten, Chalas, and I. And every now and then we come back super passionate about an idea of ours, and then somebody turns around and says, oh, what a dumb idea, we're not going to support this. Let me tell you the last idea we did not get support, which was Selfie. I love the damn product, right? But anyhow, we did not get support on that product. But we were also not getting support around Lazy Pay till about 12 months back. And really, that team of Lazy Pay, what a crazy team, right? They just kept pushing. They kept pushing every day in terms of what they build and what they take out and how they come up with success. And they kept on creating small metrics. They kept on creating, saying, you know what, I'm going to do 2,000 transactions and I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to do 10,000 transactions and suddenly we see, oh, 10,000 transactions happened, but you know what, delinquency has gone up to 9%. Oh, I'm going to get the delinquency down to 4%. And 12 months later, Laurent in this last meeting actually stood there and said, for me, entrepreneurship is what this team here in India has done around Lazy Pay. He actually said Lazy Pay is what entrepreneurship stands about, and he actually told this to the entire leadership of PayU. And this was a product which we've had to fight every day. So what I'm trying to tell you in this story is, guys, there will be things that we will be convinced about. In India, we have enough resources and enough financials within our organization to fund some very interesting ideas, and we will back it. We will treat it as a startup. We will support it, and we will try and make it work. We've got to completely back the idea. Lazy Pay is a great experience. We're going to start doing exactly the same with QR, and we've got to come up with these new initiatives in our business. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you about what Jiten tried here, right? So what Jiten tried here with this chart was, he said, guys, look, you know what? This is how the personal financial working in India. He then put up another chart around it and said, well, and the actual space where credit is happening for air travel, is happening for hospitals, is happening for education, so on and so forth. I think PayU should just go and buy an NBFC here. Like buying an NBFC is like $1 billion idea, right? But anyhow, he pitched it. He said, let's buy an NBFC. I think he got to a second best. He said like, okay, let's buy another NBFC, which is just starting off. And really very, very proud in terms of what we've achieved. We now have an NBFC with us. Shweta will tell us within the next few days' time that this NBFC would be ready to rock and roll. But again, great progress on this part of our business. Look, I guess the financials, I've said this enough and more number of times. I think the financials are really, really healthy state. We've done a very, very good job in terms of growing our revenues. We will end the year at 950 crores of revenues in India. Again, we will continue to be a break-even business for this year of 2019, and going into 2020, we will be looking to make money. We've actually presented a budget which says that we will make about 100 crores next year in 2020. So I think financials is healthy. We've got to a right team, got to a right size, and can really feel excited with what's coming up over the next few years' time. I'm just going to summarize this. What is the bigger vision for us at a business level? Vision is simple. We started off as a merchant payments company. I think in this market we are winning. We are doing a tremendous job in this space. We've started off with data and interrogation of data, building consumer profiles, underwriting, risk. I think we are doing a really good job with it. Once you have the data, once you're interrogating the data, what can you do? First stop which we have said is that we will do credit, and that's the space that we've clearly invested in. And then as we move forward, we've got an entire world out there. I think I've shared this a few times with you. Clearly over the next 18 months time, as Naspers FinTech, we are going to make significant investments in the India FinTech landscape. You will see us going in and partnering with, investing in other external companies. It could be in the areas around remittances, wealth, digital banking, insurance, merchant credit, a whole host of segments. But again, we will do it because it is a part of the journey that we are on, and we feel very excited that this plays along with our core strengths. I just want to leave some parting thoughts with you, right? And the parting thoughts were, greatness is not achieved by 1 quarter or by 8 quarters. Greatness is achieved by delivering to this over many, many years. And for me, the story of Roger Federer is very exciting. So Roger Federer, if you would know, and you know, that was the time when he actually beat Sampras in the Wimbledon. For Roger Federer, that was the moment that the world saw him. Within the next few Grand Slams, he actually went ahead and won the first Grand Slam. But in the last 4 or 5 years, or I would say in the last 5 years, he actually went through a patch of 3 years where he did not win many Grand Slams. And the whole story was that his backhand, which was so revered and so beautiful, and everybody used to say, what a fantastic free-flowing backhand, that backhand used to get pounded by Djokovic. So what Djokovic used to do in match after match is just pound Roger Federer on his backhand, and his beautiful backhand started to actually break down. In the last 2 years, when he's actually gone past 30 and has gone into later stages, he's actually worked on his backhand, he's worked on his technique, he's worked on his mental strength, and has come back and won about 4 Grand Slams or 5 Grand Slams in recent times. I think we have exactly the same situation here in PayU, right? We are now a company which has been around for 7 years. We've done a great job in payments, and what we are going to find is competition is going to come and hit us in those areas that we are neglecting. Competition will hit us on the on operations and customer support side. Competition will outflank us when it comes to some of the products that they would create and deliver. But worry not. I think we have to be very careful, and we have to be more diligent to create the right product, go back to the basics in rewiring our CS and ops so that we can respond to the market situation better. And that's really what I'm asking you all to take as a lesson out there, which says that even when you're doing very good, even when things are looking fantastic, there are things that we need to work on, there are things that we need to improve. Only then we can truly say that greatness can get achieved. So that's one thing. For all that the Economic Times tries to tell you, the Economic Times would love to tell you that this is our customer. This is the consumer that we are serving. Where, you know, everybody is doing so many digital transactions and there is data and all of that. Guys, let me tell you, the consumer for us over the next 4 or 5 years is the one who sends you those weird memes which keep coming into your phones. You know, those stupid memes which come into your phone has been sent to you by one of our potential consumers. This is how our new consumer is going to look like. Our technology, our product, our checkouts have to really try and serve for this person. I can tell you right away that, you know, standing on the stage, one product which we are clearly late on is we actually don't have a vernacular checkout page. We have to give an option to the consumer that if he wants to see the checkout page in Bengali, he needs to get to see the checkout page in Bengali. I'm saying that's the least that we can do. If this is the consumer that we have to, if there is anybody out here who doesn't believe that this is our consumer for the next 5 years, please raise your hand. Nobody did. If that is the case, please go to him. Please go to him, and the only way to go to him is either by going to vernacular or by going to videos. Now, we can't do videos in the business that we are into right now, but what we do, I think we have to think differently. So last 2 points before I close is that, guys, we are on our journey, we are not there, there are many processes that we've got to rewire, we will do it over the next year's time. Second, our target consumer is changing, our target merchant customer is also changing. We've got to do a lot more to understand it and come up with products which address all these things. With all of those thoughts, let's start the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Amrish. A fantastic context and vision for the way forward for us. Some key takeaways for me personally. I was listening to this, taking notes while Amrish was speaking as well. We are part of a country which is fully fintech ready, right? In all aspects, we as a company are strategically placed in being able to win this, and innovation and entrepreneurship is key, right? So you always heard the word entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is when within a company like this, you have many, many small startups coming up. So that's key for us to move forward on that. So thank you for that, Amrish. Very, very insightful walkthrough for us. Thank you for that. The next session is our first panel coming up. This panel will talk about payments. I'll give you more context. While we do that, can we start having the panel coming up? Shailaz, can you please take a seat? Clap, guys. Thank you. Okay. So while the panel gets up on the stage, let me give you some context towards what this is about. Through Amrish's conversation with us right now and what we know previously, we are hands down the payments leader in this country. Okay? And payments has been part of our DNA for a very, very long time. We understand this business is doing very, very well. Moving forward, payment will remain a core focus for us. It's not that we have won everything which is there. It's a core focus in the future. Why it's a core focus in the future? Because it is promised that by 2025, India will be a cashless economy, which leaves us tremendous ground and space to do more things and more innovations in that context. So there is a lot to be done there. And in the setup that we have over here, we have leaders who have done tremendous work in this area to make PayU a leader in this country for payments. And there's nobody better than them to come and give us a context in terms of what we can do better, right? Quick introduction of the people in the panel itself, starting with Shailaz. Shailaz, in this context, will be a moderator, right? He will drive the session in this context. Shailaz, as all of you know, is one of the founding members for PayU, right? Which means he has a very long association with understanding payments as a field, right? And his passion for doing this work is very evident and frankly infectious because he loves what he does. And he loves the people that he's working with as well, right? And all of you guys sitting over here know this, right? So that's true. We also have the liberty of asking all the same embarrassing questions to Shailaz as well, and he was kind enough to answer it. So I'll go through it. He did not say poker. So what's the problem that keeps you up at night? So he said, how to make PayU the best company and how can I make people really happy, right? Really important for him. What's the change you want to see in the world to the companies you lead and invest in? He said, I want the next generation to learn differently. I personally seen him believe and do this. What's the one thing you should know about you before we hear you speak today? He says, I evolve every day, every hour, every minute. And the thing that he's most proud of in his non-corporate life is his daughter. Right? So big hand for Shailaz for
Thank you very much.
Agreeing to be part of that. The other panelists, if you don't know them, you should. All right. So we have Raul, heads business for enterprise. Gaurav recently joined us, and now heads business for SMB. Prashant takes care of technology for us, and Manish will give us a strong perspective, being the CFO, from how the financials in this context look at, and his vision in that context as well. With that,
Sure.
please, stage is all yours, Shailaz. Just to remind the panel, we are a bit short on time, so please be mindful of the giant timer in the middle of the room.
Okay, thanks.
Right.
Thanks, Amba. Thanks for a lovely introduction. Amrish set the tone really right that greatness is not achieved in 4 quarters or 8 quarters. Greatness is achieved over a period of time and continuously evolving. So to all of you know, I am with the NASPAS groups in the last 11 years. Hopefully not. I evolve every day, right? So I'm with NASPAS groups in the last 11 years and worked in the capacity of a founding member of IBIBO Group and as a founder of PayU. But why I'm here? I'm here because I believe in building great company and working with the great people, like you all. But great people don't work for small benefits or small goals. They look forward for inspiring stories, and a very, very strong vision, which people need to have. And as Ambrish said, these are very exciting times of fintech industry. We are moving from cashless economy to digital economy. There's a research report which recently said that, guys, by 2025, India is going to be 53% digital economy as compared to what 10% today is. So nothing better than today to be in the fintech industry. So you guys are at the right place. But it's not about me or it's not about the fintech industry, it's about the people who are building this company. And in next half an hour, I'm going to talk about the people, some of the people who are one of the great people who are building this company, about their business as usual and the future growth plans they have. And I'm sure during the next half an hour, they're going to inspire you and by convincing you that what you're doing, why you're doing. Or maybe enable you guys to think differently. So let's start with Rahul. And Rahul is with us since last 3 years, and he's still evolution of a company from 2,000 crore combined entities to become a 10,000 crore business now. And he's seen the market very closely with, in the last 3 years. So let's start, Rahul. How do you see that, the competition hitting it up? Market is evolving every day. How you see the market is evolving, and how you see, are we geared up to do things?
Yeah, so sure, Shalaz, thanks for asking this. Yes, definitely we are geared up, and I will give you some perspective on how I have seen myself, the way company has changed, the way market has changed, and how we are perceived in the market over the last 3 years. 3 years back, when we were doing 2,000 crores, market was recognizing us as somebody who is serious in the ecosystem, making some waves, but still I think we were not looked at somebody who has arrived in the industry. Very different the way, for example, I used to go for some of those merchant meetings where I had to introduce who we are, what is PayU, what we do, and then we kind of get into, okay, get to the business. I think now things are very different, especially in the e-commerce side of payments. We are a known force. We have all the top merchants. We have Flipkart, Amazon, we have Airbnb. So definitely we have kind of arrived there, and therefore the way we are looked up, whether by banks, whether by partners, the way by our merchants, I think has significantly changed. Also, I think over the last 3 years, our learning as an organization has also grown manifold. While it's a process, there are 2 milestones which I think I can clearly remember, which has helped us as a company to grow. One is definitely the merger that happened between the Citrus and PayU. Citrus came with a very different perspective and strengths, very strong in airlines, doing payments business, mostly doing BIN sponsorship, and therefore understanding the back-end part of the entire business very well. PayU being very strong in e-commerce and understanding the overall different approach to solving consumer problems in a very different way. So I think when these 2 companies came together, it was a very right mix in terms of complementarity of the knowledge to really bring our knowledge to next level. I think the second big milestone was last year when we started focusing a lot on increasing our profitability. I think that was the first time, Shailas, when we started looking under the hood to look for what are some of those business changes or the way we look at payment processing from business perspective and how do we change it. So yeah, those learning, I think, has been tremendous over the last 3 years, and I think as an organization we have changed. Third major thing when I look at the organization, what has changed is definitely the collaboration that happens between the local and the PayU global. Like 3 years back, we were barely kind of, really collaborating at all. I think today we are collaborating a lot, and also it changes the way we are operating and the way the market looks at us. Some of the major deals that we have, whether it's Airbnb and now whether it's Facebook, all these are primarily because of the collaboration that we are kind of taking to the next level. So that's where I think key things which I look at in 3 years, how we have changed and how markets are looking at us.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Rahul. Now moving to our new leader. He's just 2 weeks old. He just finished 2 weeks today. Yeah. So it will be interesting to know. So he's 2 weeks old, but he's not new to the payments. He's been with He was with Amex before. I'm sure you must have heard the guy's company name called Payback, which is a loyalty points company. So he has seen payments before, so he's not new to the payments. It would be interesting to know from you, Gaurav, is how did you look PayU from an external point of view? And after 2 weeks within the company, how do you see your SMB business going to evolve in the coming years?
Thanks, Shailaz. Well, actually, this question has been asked by some others as well. I mean, how is PayU viewed outside in the market? Because I'm coming from outside, so obviously I carry a fairly neutral disposition towards it. Let me tell you, PayU is a very well-respected name in the market, and it's very well-respected simply because of the things that they've achieved in such a short span of time. I think it's what Amrish was saying, 7 years or so. It's a market leader, and it's recognized for, and I've heard this from multiple people, it's recognized for its sharp focus on product innovation and customer experience. That's something that I've heard repeatedly. It sets us apart from competition. And when I look at, personally for myself, when I look at the SMB business, one of the things that attracted me to this role was the fact that I get an opportunity to work in a space that, to me, I think is one of the most challenging, one of the most complex, and one of the most high potential areas for us to participate in. So that's I have a lot of friends, colleagues, peers who worked in the payment space. Everybody seems to say that the final frontier is the SMB space. The battle for market dominance or leadership will be won and lost in this space simply because of the scale and diversity and the complexity that this offers. Sure. So and from here on, I can only talk about on behalf of the team that has done such a fabulous job over the years in the SMB space. When I just look at the data, and very few data points at the moment, given my tenure, we've got a business that has 400,000 merchants. Just to give you a context, SMB has about 50 million merchants today, and they contribute to about 38% of the GDP. It's a phenomenal opportunity. And PayU was probably one of the earliest organizations to realize that there is huge potential in this, and they invested into building, understanding the different TGs, different use cases, and build products. I think we have about 22 products in the SMB space, right from a slash pay earlier to a bold checkout to PayU now to Excel. I mean, there's a long list. And little wonder, we've got what, about 400,000 merchants today who do annually about 20 million plus transactions, and we process what, over $1 billion of GMV. I don't think so all of this would have been achieved if the team had not really put in so much of effort behind making this a success. And we're not just resting on what we're doing. There is a long list of products, I'm told, that are already in pipeline. There's a lot of work that's happening on improving efficiency in the customer experience space. So, for example, our onboarding, which used to be about 70 days, is now down to 20 days. Our merchant care and the experience part of it, average ticket per active merchant has come down by 50% over the last 10 months. So there's a whole host of things that have happened, and a great deal to accomplish. I'm personally very excited about this space.
Fantastic. So one thing which he said to me when he joined in, and that the guys, before coming here, I met a lot of professionals who works in the payment industries and a lot of entrepreneurs. And when he saw the number of $1 billion processed by SMB, he was like, oops, I didn't knew that you guys got such a big SMB business. Nobody processed such a big amount of volume at the SMB side. So fantastic job done, guys, on the SMB side too. Now, moving to Prashant. Prashant has seen this company from scratch till today. From what, 200 crore to 10,000 crore to from 100, maybe a few thousand transactions to a 1.5 million transactions a day. I would really like him to talk about how did he see the scaling up and how did he change the culture in the engineering team to see the scaling very differently.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up that point about culture, Shailaz. I mean, it's very easy for someone in technology to say that the answer to scaling lies in code and infrastructure. But really, if you look at the people that we have hired onto the teams, especially starting mid-2015, so we've always had this wonderful set of people, some of whom have tenures longer than I have actually in the company, who always put the customer first, who are willing to stretch, who are willing to literally bust their guts off, right, to help us solve meaningful problems. But then I think the really interesting thing has been the technology leadership, the people that we've put in place starting mid-2015, the way they have, come up with outsized contributions, coming up with ideas of their own, and making, simple ideas into movements for the entire organization. For example, we were all over the place. We used to build without really thinking through what we were building. And just this very, very simple idea that, hey, we are in this business where what we are supposed to do is just move money from a source of value to a provider of goods or services. That's what we are in the business of. And the only 4 things that matter in this business are security, availability, conversion rates, and the margin that you're making, and how you scale that up, right? Just distilling this whole complexity into such a simple construct started off with, one person who started making this statement the moment he joined somewhere around mid-2015, which has now become a movement, right? The entire team now responds to that call. And I think it is this culture, it is understanding that, what we build is really all about this. That has been the fantastic sort of achievement that I'm personally very proud of. It's just the leadership that we've put together in technology over the last 3 years.
Sure. Fantastic. So before I come to Manish, to you, I'll just go back to Rahul. Rahul, what are the new focus areas which you are trying to do in your enterprise business in the coming days, or maybe next 12 months, 15 months? You see Amrish talking about changes happening in the country and the fintech industry, changes happening on the digital side. How are you going to evolve your enterprise business in the next coming days?
So if I specifically look at enterprise business, I think there would be 3 major things we will be focusing on. We are already pretty strong in e-commerce. We are not still #1 in terms of industries if you look at government and education. Given a lot of growth in online payments in India is going to come from these sectors, we would be doubling down our effort in these 2 sectors, which would mean we would be having stronger partnership with banks. We would be having products which specifically focus on these particular verticals. In addition, of course, we'll be taking a big bet on the offline space, as Amrish talked about. So these would be 2 my focus areas in terms of new verticals. Also, I think consciously we will have to make a lot of effort to improve at the speed at which we deliver the products, at the speed at which we identify the use cases and solve for those. We will need to kind of be much faster in delivering innovations on UPI, whether on Bharat QR, creating specific solutions for banks, etc. International payments, MCP, all those I think from product perspective we have to be very, very aggressive. That's the second focus area. A third, I see a lot of global merchants which have increased interest in India. We are definitely in a very, a lot of large merchants which are based out of Valley or from Europe. We are kind of very, very close discussions with that. Okay. A focus on getting those merchants home would also be, I think, a big thing for next few years.
So you're clearly laying out that you'll have government education as a key focus area. You're going to focus on Bharat QR, UPI as a key area. Thirdly, you're going to focus on international payments as a key area. Definitely. And definitely, when it's cross-border payments also is going to be?
Yes, both ways. Global merchants, yeah. Indian payments, and Indian merchants, global payments.
So I think the interesting part lies with Gaurav. Gaurav, SMB, $1 billion, 50 million merchants, you said, what are going to be your key focus area in the coming years? Because the next wave is looking forward for SMB now.
I couldn't agree more with that, with you, Shailaz. Early days, but personally, I think QR will play a very, very important role in the SMB space. And a number of reasons for that. I mean, if you, the opportunity that QR presents itself is sizable. What QR does is it allows us to get our foot into the door with an SMB merchant and establish a relationship. See, and why I say this is because a typical SMB merchant, not digitally savvy, does not have even the basic till management solutions, and generally resistant to having tech-led products in his shop. Very, very transactional in his mindset. The simplicity of QR, the ease of onboarding, the ease in which he can manage a payment solution like that, I think really would help us in breaking down the walls of resistance that we normally encounter with an SMB merchant. Once we've gone past that hurdle, and I'm assuming that once we do that, we will anyways be able to drive and demonstrate value to our merchants. Once we do that, then our job is relatively easier, because then we've got to move the merchant up the engagement curve. Right? Once he's done that, for example, QR will solve for a proximity payment.
Sure.
The minute you've got that and you've established a degree of trust with the merchant, you can introduce the remote payment solutions that we have. There's a long list of remote payment solutions that we have, right? From bulk invoicing to subscriptions to payouts, etc. There's a long list that we can then leverage, and gradually keep increasing the level of relationship. Eventually, the ultimate goal would be to have a very deep relationship with the merchant, and and literally provide services which drive downstream revenue behavior. Sure. You know, whether it's credit or it's analytics or it's marketing solutions, etc. There are a whole host of things that we can do to then increase the revenue realized per merchant. But the starting point, as I said, for us, a QR opens that door for us, which normally is a little closed. So I'm personally pretty excited about it. The second thing that I want to say, which is not necessarily what we are doing, I think Amrish also talked about it, is what's happening in the consumer ecosystem. With the kind of focus or the kind of monies that are being put behind driving a consumer a behavior shift, whether it's a Google Pay or it's Phone Pay or it is Paytm, whatever, you would see consumer being incentivized to try out digital payments. My experience, a large part of my experience has been in consumer space, and I can tell you, Amex used to face this merchant resistance, it still does. Consumer insistence is a big driver of merchant adoption. It plays a huge role in merchant adoption. So the simplicity of the QR code coupled with the merchant adoption that the customer insistence will lead to merchant adoption, I think it presents us a very big opportunity to win big in that space.
Sure. So interesting, guys. Both guys have said, then let me just repeat it for you in a different fashion. Consumer payments are getting intensified right now. We have Sujit sitting here from Google Pay. We have Phone Pay, Google Pay, Paytm, or any Amazon Pay, everybody, Beam, banks apps, the consumer payments are getting intensified in this side of the world. There's no common acceptance tool which is looking forward for the merchants, right? And we are very, very rightly placed to accelerate now our thinking and our execution very, very fast to win this space when people are fighting for this space. So this is a big game which I think Rahul has spoken about it and Gaurav has spoken about it. But what lies interesting is engineering is a backbone, right? That's the critical factor engineering product. So Prashant has the most exciting job to figure out that one place these gentlemen are trying to scale the business and the other place they are trying to start the new businesses, right? How does that engineering culture and engineering architecture will come into the place that there will be agility towards the new startups, new technology, and the scaling of the present business?
Yes, I think I'll break this down into 2 or 3 parts, right? So one is being ready for the future, building for the future. So in engineering, we're actually looking beyond current trends. We are actually looking beyond things like UPI, Bharat QR. And what I've been telling the team is that, think about a world where transactions are not happening on just web browsers or mobile devices, but it's an IoT world that you're looking at, right? There's sensors everywhere. There is so many devices or small little things where people could end up doing their transactions on. And we need to start thinking beyond just a simple web and app sort of a construct. And how do we use, and these are the devices where your traditional checkouts will just not work, right? You just have to think of identity, authentication in completely different ways. So what can we do to build for that sort of a future, right? So how do you solve for the problems of identity and authentication specifically? And I think this is an area where we should not just let schemes and banks sort of, take the lead, right? We have that opportunity and we need to create something really meaningful there. That's one. The second thing is putting together an engine where 3 or 4 people can literally iterate very, very quickly on product ideas. We've done this in the past where we've deployed 20-man teams, 1-year-long projects, and that's just not the way it works, right? So you have to have, we've learned from that, small teams, constantly innovating, constantly pushing out code, learning, taking feedback, improving, integrating, not trying to build everything, on your own, but reusing stuff that has been built by others, that is the internal open source and that sort of culture. So I think these are the two things that are primarily driving the conversation within engineering in respect of innovation and being future ready. And yeah, we are very confident of being able to best the future.
So guys, as we said, we are scaling up the business, talking about profitability. Another place we're looking to investments. One guy who's the center and keeps a check on us is the CFO, right? Is Manish Goyal. I would really request Manish, you heard these gentlemen talking about scaling again and investments areas. How do you look at our financials is going to look forward? How do you going to look at the business cases? How do you look at 4-pod engineering coming to you? And then Rahul asking you 4 more engineers to scale further business, and then Gaurav coming, no, I need to do my numbers. How do you look at these things now, and how are you looking at shaping up our financials?
Let me just set the context first. So from a time when, we were making huge investments to build the business and build a solid platform to a position where we have become a gateway of choice for our merchants, I think we have come a long way.
Yes.
Okay. Clearly, there's a lot of work that has gone behind all of this, with tech teams putting a great platform together, sales teams going out in the market and getting the best take rates in a very, very highly competitive market. On the back of all that's been built, the banking alliance team really getting the deals and the kind of costs that we have to incur, and a lot of efficiencies that we've built in our business over time. I think there is a huge ground that we have covered over time. I'm extremely proud to say that in this year our payments business has turned profitable, with contribution coming in from every aspect, every function, everyone who's contributing. Coming to the question, Shalaz. So clearly there is monies that we have started generating, which will invest in, furthering our growth from where we are today. All these, challenges that one would expect us to face, being an entrepreneurial organization, people coming to me every day, etc., etc. But I think there has to be some method to the madness. So you put systems and processes, you build budgets, you allow for some, room for us to try different things, and, you keep challenging the teams to reconsider their assumptions, to go back and rethink.
Absolutely.
I think some of those things will really go a long way in building a really solid foundation as we build our business for the next level.
Sure, fantastic. Before I open for questions, just to give a quick summary of what the strategy look like for payments now is, the payments for us is definitely we are looking for scaling our enterprise business, and there's the story of continuing our direct integrations and deeper integration with the banks and deeper integration with merchants will continue going on, right? Second stuff, what we are working towards is getting now the authentications also of the bankers under our controls. So that will get much better customer experience to the merchants in the going forward in the domestic side. Second, we are opening up international as a stream. When I say international, cross-border, both sides, where the merchants is within India and merchants is outside India. We're going ahead with that as an investment point of view. Third, we are definitely going as an investment point of view is the Bharat QR. Right? So Bharat QR, we are looking as an offline space seriously and the online space seriously on it. We are going to go seriously on that project. I'm going to speak to Sujit also post this to have a partnership going on down there. So that's where the third stuff. And fourth, definitely as education and the government is going to the key focus area for us going forward in terms of scaling as a sector for us. That's where the whole payment thought process looks for us today. I'm opening up for questions. Questions can be from within this room also, and questions can be from the workplace where you can type out the questions and we are ready to answer it. And I'm also ready to answer it. It's not only these 4 folks. Please open the questions. Where's the mic? Mic. Can I have
Let me take the mic here. So my question is for Rahul. In the last 3-4 years, when you have seen the growth 5x, what is that one value promise that stood out and winners deals, acquire so many partners? And when you are saying that we are going to focus on the education and government, what is that value promise that is going to give us enormous growth on that front?
The value for our merchants and their end consumers is just simply ability for them to pay whenever they want, by whatever mode they want, and in the easiest possible way they can pay. That's the value that we, as an enterprise payments perspective, we promise our merchants, our consumers. Whether it's credit cards, whether it's net banking, whether it's wallets, any option, we will give them to pay, and they should be able to pay in the most easy way with highest success rates, best consumer experience. So that's the value prop. Now, it might get into different manifestation when it gets translated into a government space, or maybe a B2B versus a B2C space, but underlying drive remains the same.
If I understood your question, you said that how are you going to win the education and government space in the going forward? And what's going to be value prop, right? 3, 4 things, simple. One, to win the education market, you need to have a lot of partnership with the technology players, right? Who's providing technologies to the education guys. Second, very clearly, you need to have a great reconciliation settlement systems working for them, which is much more ending towards education guys as compared to the e-commerce guys. We have today, whatever we build is on the basis of the e-commerce requirements, not on the basis of the education requirements, right? Third, in the government, it's going to be another partnership scheme. So you need to go to the places like Infosys, TCS of the world, or the people below them, and go into that because they're going to do government projects, right? And that's where the fourth thing. And definitely bankers are going to be the partner they're going. So it's about partnership and the value prop of your product which you're building on it. As simple as it is. No complicacy.
Hi, Shalaz. I have a question for you. I think Amrish brought up a very interesting point where QR and UPI is really important right now. You also said that hey, we're going to use Bharat QR as a way in which we're going to strengthen our our place in the SMB space, and that really impacts my work and in this company as well. I'd like to know what plan do we have for all of you to basically reach out to this audience, because I think it's a really hard job to get the QR product on the ground, and since we are a digital focused company, how do we intend to bridge the gap between online and offline?
Okay. Hello, can you? Okay. So, very, very good questions. These are very early days, but still I'd like to answer these questions. So we don't have a one strategy for distribution. We have multiple strategy or multi-pronged strategy to go into distribution. One prolonged strategy is definitely where we have an enterprise businesses who has their own distribution networks, like Urban Clap, or maybe Oyo who has his own hotels, maybe a Red Bus who has own bus fleets, no, maybe he's tired with the bus fleets. There's Swiggy who has all the restaurants available right now there. The one place we are going to go is going to get into tap with our own present ecosystem markets and going to use their own distribution network to start distributing things. That's one aspect. Second aspect is very clearly is we're going to use the corporate alliance network. So we may tomorrow go and tie with ITC of the world, or maybe a mother dairy of the world, and start helping the distribution, right? That's the second aspect, right? Third aspect very clearly is we're going to use the banking channel. So we have a great tie-ups with the bankers today, and we're going to go with the bankers with the distribution. There are more hungry banks in this country right now other than the biggest acquirers in the country like SBI and SDFC. There are more hungry banks which is coming like Kotak, IndusInd banks, so more hungry to get into distributions. We're going to leverage them, right? Fourth aspect, which is and I'm not going to deny that, we're going to have our own FOS, not our own FOS, we will have an interns on our FOS also. But on the city-wise specific, right? Fifth aspect where definitely is going to be our own present merchant base. We have enough present merchant base to leverage around it, okay? It's not a small number which we foresee. We have gone our database drilling down done, and there's enough space available in that merchant base also. And last on the least, of course, we're going to leverage if there is a 20% GST returns comes on the QR code, then you see a latent demand coming to us as compared to we going into the market. Sounds good? Okay. Any more further questions? Guys, hard questions to Prashant, please. No more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have question to Gaurav and Rahul. Basically, as an employee, I have seen that there are there is a, when we say SMB as a segment, so we categorize SMB from our internal point of view, where enterprise is catering to the larger clients with millions of dollars of revenue, but SMB is catering to a DIY kind of solutions. So I see that we end up missing some of the key companies which are at the, which will drive the future of Indian economy, which is neither nor lies in the DIY category, but neither are very big in enterprise mode. So what are your plans to tackle to that? And I've seen that those going to the competition, because they treat those small companies which will become big in few years as enterprise businesses. So what are your plans to basically tackle that problem that we face as a company?
Guys, this is an extremely interesting question he's asked for. So Gaurav, Rahul, would you like to start off?
The way we are looking at going after the merchants, you're right, we kind of categorize them into potential SMB and a potential enterprise merchant. SMB would go after those merchants with typically with a very strong product proposition around easy onboarding, automated risk rules, probably faster KYC, or all those kind of things, a better checkout experience, multiple those things. Enterprise goes after those merchants by more with the angle of having probably more customized solutions, ability to manage the internal stakeholders much better, etc. Now, I think where the gap typically happens is somewhere either some of the product capabilities from a SMB perspective to really make the ease of getting the merchant come to us, it might be missing. Or somewhere from the enterprise perspective, we are not able to map our target list of merchants so well. Or somewhere probably we apply 80-20 rule in terms of, okay, these might not be the worth going after. I fundamentally disagree that the merchants do not come to us because we have any gap in terms of any product proposition that we have because of the size of the merchants. I think it's more a gap probably in our execution, where the product on SMB has to go better, and from the enterprise perspective, we have to be much more aggressive in the market. So yeah, in my mind, the answer lies in that execution. We know how to solve for it. I think we have to just solve for it better. That would be my view, and Gaurav, over to you.
Well, early days to really answer this question, but okay, here's how I think of it. Rahul has already mentioned a little bit about it, that the classification or the segmentation between SMB and enterprise probably is not linked to the size of the business, but to the level of evolution that the merchant has reached. So you may be a bigger business, but you have not really evolved in terms of your tech capabilities, in terms of your openness to adopt new age solutions. Probably an SMB, because products are built for that kind of level of evolution, could fit in better versus enterprise. And you may be a small business just starting out, but are very evolved in your thinking, and you have the tools and resources. It probably goes to an enterprise. That said, the only other thing that I can add is, I think it's a function of, if that is the case, what you just mentioned, Devendra, then I think it's just a question of close collaboration between enterprise and SMB teams, because eventually you don't want to miss out on any single business opportunity that exists outside. Whether it's SMB or enterprise, you want to make sure that he's within the PayU ecosystem.
So there was a point very well taken, and I would request both Rahul and Gaurav to speak to you post this conference to understand you a little better, because I'm really worried when you're talking about this. So we should not miss it out. Okay?
So, why don't I continue with that question and actually pass it on to Prashant. I think the point which he makes is right, which is, I think there are enterprise set of merchants that we have. And then there is SMB, which is largely guys who don't leave office, right? They are in the office waiting for merchants to come to us. But when you look at, let's say, in the city of Jaipur, there could be a builder, who could be having 100 societies which he is covering, and requires payment services for that, society that he has built out there. How do we target for that? I guess the reason I want to move this to Prashant, if Srini was there, I would have pushed it to Srini also, is that from a product and tech point of view, what more do you think we can build, Prashant, where we can go after the segment which is not just 100% DIY, but at the same time, they are also not big enough where, our sales guys actually walk into their office in Jaipur. what is the tech that we can build there?
Right. So, last year we had the SMB team rolling out the Sandbox product, right, which is a very interesting way for merchants to check out what is available on the platform without really putting their business at risk. That is something that needs to evolve, and that is something that needs to offer multiple capabilities on our processing platform for merchants to try out. Now, we are not there yet because we still have disjointed stacks, we still have separate onboardings across enterprise and SMB, but over the next few months, and literally when I say next few, I'm talking about the next 1.5 months specifically, you would actually see common onboarding, and thereon, you actually have this concept which we very lovingly call one PayU within the engineering team, where if you are a merchant, you are a merchant across all product lines, all stacks, all lines of business as far as we are concerned. And we will now use that to start offering all of our product capabilities to all of our merchants. And so the problem from the supply side, what Rahul was saying, right, it's about us being able to execute by bettering our products, right? Really, it's about, we have all the products, right? It's just how we wire them up to ensure that everyone who onboards themselves onto our platform has access to all of them. Really, really interesting work going on in this area. And like I said, next 1.5 months, you should see common onboarding, and a few months after that, probably around 3 to 4 months after that, you will see things like a single checkout experience, Sandbox offering all of our product functionality to everyone, helping the whole self-serve aspect and helping a range of merchants experience what we have on the platform and decide exactly what they want to do on our platform. Coupled with easy, intelligent pricing, right, where essentially the merchant literally selects modules that they would like to use and a pricing plan is just created, right, without any complexity, without any hand-holding, phone calls, relationship meetings. That's what we are aspiring to build, and actually we are not very, very far away from delivering all of this.
Okay guys, we are running out of time. One last, only in one sentence guys. What do you expect in the coming days or going forward days? One thing which you expect from across the department and across the organization. One sentence, no more than that. Rahul.
Passion to do more.
Okay.
I'm a big believer in an old saying, which is, it's not about the size of the dog in a fight, it's about the size of the fight in a dog. That pretty much sums it up.
Yes.
If you're a big dog, right, you want to fight as well, so it seems very challenging.
Okay guys, we are running out of time, we can do the conversation.
I'll refer to the statement that I made in the survey, right? I mean, the whole cowboy and America's angle. Realize that we are human beings, realize that we are all capable of...
One sentence.
Yeah.
You guys are 2 minutes away from security coming on stage.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm wearing my bouncer suit. But I think, if you know that this is the right thing to do for the business and for the customer, just go out and do it. Don't wait for needless approvals. Have a vision, execute on it. Always move forward. Doesn't matter if it's slow or fast, but just keep moving forward.
On this, I would like interesting note from Prashnish when he said no approvals by you.
No, I think there's still opportunity for more ownership and collaboration. We'll just leave it.
Right, Raj. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic, fantastic. As these guys come off the stage, I'm sure you have many, many more questions. Those of you here, those of you on the workplace as well. Two perspectives on that. These guys work in the same office as you, right? Which is useful. The second perspective is leaders don't necessarily have to have all the answers for you, right? Leaders with the experience bring you perspective.
Clarity hai mere dimag mein bilkul.
The other part of the answers need to come from you.
Who is wearing the mic?
Yeah, who is?
Where is?
Okay, shall I stop sabotaging me? Okay, so yeah, please, you need to be the other part. You are more number of brains sitting over there than 4 people sitting over there. You have to come up with answers yourself as well. So think about that way. from a summary point of what we covered, I think Shalaz did a good job in terms of summarizing what the objective, the core focus, the scaling, all those things are going to be. I'll summarize this in another way. Okay, I'll tell you a joke. Okay. So there are three things which I personally capture from this. Is if you're going to do this well, you need to have good business management, you need to have great technology, you need to have good customer experience. All these three things put together, needs to make sense. And none of them are more important than the other. Why? So here's a joke. There's this turkey, and this turkey is walking in a redwood forest. Redwood forest, very, very tall trees. Turkey is a flightless bird. So this turkey is walking around the redwood forest and is very sad. I'm a flightless bird, can't fly up on the tree. It would be a nice view on top of this. So he's moping around. Along comes a bull. And bull says, Turkey, why so sad? So turkey says, I can't fly. The view would be nice on top. Bull says, don't worry. Here, eat some of my dung. You eat it, you'll get a lot of nutrients, and you'll fly up on top of the tree. So the turkey has some of that dung and gets a lot of, energy. Now you know where Red Bull comes from. And the turkey flaps his wing and goes on top of the tree. Now turkey top of the tree is really happy, fantastic view looking around. And there's a farmer which sees the turkey on fire, takes a gun and shoots it. The moral of the story is the bullshit will get you up there, but will not keep you there for long. Right? So you need everything put together to make sense of that. All right. Now, how are you guys doing on energy? Front row says good, everybody else is sleeping at the back. There's a guy with his head on the chair, in the front chair. This is not an airline, guys. This doesn't work. All right, so let's pick up some energy, guys. Get up one more time. You're like, oh, okay, my joints are creaking. Come on, that. Sorry?
Squatting.
Okay, you really? Okay, anyway, turn around. Go once this way. Yeah, turn the other way around. Come back. Very good. Now, make sure you've shook hands at least once with the people on the table that you're sitting with.
Hey guys, Sujit. Hey Sandeep, good to see you. Hi, Sujit. Hi,
All right, guys, there really aren't that many people. Okay, so guys, okay, turn around. Shaking hands, no talking. The point of this, guys, is you're coming together and you've been strategically placed on tables such that you're not next to your best buddy in Bangalore, Mumbai, or some other office. Okay? The objective for you is to network, get to know the people on each of these tables, and build a relationship. These relationships will get you far. The best companies, the best cultures are the ones which have fantastic relationships amongst the people who work together. Thank you for that. Please take a seat. There is opportunity there. All right. The next. Your attention here, please, one more time. The next piece that we'll talk about is a talk from a gentleman called Sujit. And the reason why we've got Sujit over here is he wanted to give you perspective. Right now, you got perspective internally. You got perspective from, we got people escaping. Please do come back. It's a good talk, I promise you.
It won't be that bad.
So the perspective you got right now, internally, right, from our leaders, stalwarts in the industry, really understands payments very well, but an external perspective is also very important for you. An external perspective gives you a mirror, and this mirror also gives you direction towards things you could do better. Obvious things which may not be obvious to you every single day. Right? So Sujit is here to give us that perspective, and if I can request you to be on stage, Sujit. Big hat for him, please. Quick intro for Sujit. Sujit has been with Google for a fairly long time. I won't say exactly number of years because LinkedIn could be wrong. Okay. He leads business for Google Pay's app and has been instrumental in launch of the product. He is also part of the founding team with Pay's now Google Pay on Google. That's what he did. Now, as everybody else, we like to make all the speakers uncomfortable, so we asked him all the embarrassing questions all over again. So, what is the one thing we should know about you before you hear you speak at PayU Day. So he says, I am one of the 3 founders of Tez, now Google Pay, and hold multiple patents on the product. I took 4 years to get Google to agree to invest, develop a payments product outside of US. Wow. The tenacity to get this done. What is the change you want to see in the world through the Google Pay app? I'd like to see money being smarter and simpler for users of all denominations, young, old, technology savvy, and technology challenged both. What are you most proud of in a non-corporate life? I'm not sure if I'm proud, but I'm an avid reader and still find time to read a book a week. And he also scuba dives multiple times a year and works actively for charity. Wow. What's the problem that keeps you up at night? The fear of missing opportunities and not prioritizing right. I'm particularly engrossed with the challenge of simplifying payments for rural audiences. Interesting. Sorry? I think you guys are friends. All right, fantastic. With that, Sujit, the stage is yours. Thank you so much for your time, for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me today here. PayU is one of our most important partners. You all have been great partners, so thank you, Amrish, Shailas, Rahul, for having me here as well. It's a great partnership, and I'm delighted to be here. It's a bit challenging as well. It's a bit daunting. I was just telling Amrish this. This is a room full of payment experts, the creme de la creme of India's payment ecosystem. And an anecdote essentially is that when we started Tez, the first 50 people who worked on Tez, no one came from a payments background. So the 3 of us who kickstarted it, I came from the ads and the banking business. Sumit came from Chrome, and Ed came from Android. And none of us knew anything about payments, right? So it's been an interesting journey, and we've learned a lot from partners like you. One of the key things that Rahul had mentioned is, if I could speak around innovation, how we look at India, how does Google approach problems, and that's essentially what I'd like to cover here today. Now, I'm fundamentally from a team called the Next Billion Users. This was created 4 years ago to essentially focus on an audience that historically Google wasn't great with, right? The Next Billion Users essentially represents people who weren't on the net, any digital services of Google till the point of about 2014 or 15, right? They're the audiences which were fundamentally expected to use the internet in extraordinarily different ways than the first 3 billion people who had used the internet. This audience fundamentally, to a large extent, is congregated in global growth markets, or emerging markets as we call them. And they're predominantly based in India, Indonesia, Nigeria, Brazil, Mexico, and markets like that. But APAC became a clear space for us to actually focus and look at how we could actually customize and develop products which perhaps would never go to US, would never go to any developed market, and hence we had to think ground up, right? Think about markets like India, think about markets like Indonesia. And that was the freedom that we got after multiple years saying that go and innovate and create products ground up. Now, all these audiences, if you actually think about, if you think about a consumer sitting in an NBU market, right? They're young and they're mobile only, right? They access the internet on their mobile, and hence any solution that we look at, any proposition that we'd like to take, right? In its core value proposition has to be mobile centric. And that's something that we were phenomenally focused on. Again, a commonality between all these markets is the simple fact that they're young. We all know the percentage of people who are less than the age of 25 in India, but this is true even for Indonesia, this is true even for Brazil, this is true even for Mexico. These markets are urbanizing fast, right? If you actually look at the West, if you look at US, 80% of the market is urbanized. In India, that number is 33%. But we're urbanizing really fast. So while it's going to take a fair amount of time, right, there's a significant population, for instance, that can be addressed in an urbanized market, but yet we need to focus on the rural markets as well. The third aspect actually is, from your business as well as from us, the most important aspect, right? And it's very critical to understand this, that People could be on digital, people could be using the net, but are they spending enough? Are they transacting enough? And that becomes a critical point. Everyone looks at China, right? And we say that, there's 650 million people in China who are connected, there's 400 million people in India. Yet the fact remains that an Alibaba in a single day will do as much as sales as the whole Indian e-tailing industry does, right? Why is that? That's because of disposable income. And that's a critical aspect, to look at where in the chain or where in the cycle are we from a per capita income. And the most interesting aspect, Shaila's mentioned that by 2025, 53% of all transactions will be digital. I think it will be more. But the simple aspect to consider is that in the next 10 years, 200 million Indians will move away from spending on necessities to discretion and luxury. And that's the critical point when you'll see an explosion when it comes to transactions, right? And hence, from our perspective, that's what we're looking at. Not from a strategy of what's going to happen today, but a 10-year horizon saying that if that has to come in, can we be a critical element and a player in the scheme of things out there? Now, all these users have fundamentally the same set of issues, right? And we look at it from very, very simple, but three basic perspectives. One is that phone specs are low, right? Across these markets, right? The average device specs are really low in that sense. The second is connectivity is an issue. In India, the last 18 months, 2 years, connectivity is no longer so much of an issue. But across the region, if you actually think about it, in most markets, connectivity, good quality connectivity is a fundamental issue. And the third most important thing is localized content. Amrish mentioned the simple fact that vernacular, right, is a big challenge, for instance. How do you make a page in Bengali, for instance, right? We are very mindful of that. So on day one, we launched with 8 languages, for the app that we developed. But also voice could be a solution, and that's one of the biggest things that we are focusing on, right? Because voice is native. When a user wants to make a payment or do a transaction, you'd speak as normally as you would, right? And that becomes a big opportunity for us to also focus in. So if you have these 3 fundamental issues, and as a team in NBU, that's what we started working on about 3 or 4 years ago. Our founding principles was 1, know your user. Nothing that we ever do moves forward without knowing the user. And if there is one place that we spend most amount of time, effort, money, resources, is actually in knowing the user. And we spend seriously a lot of time. Even before Tej, for instance, I think we visited close to about 80 cities, from Chhattisgarh to Udupi, for instance. You mentioned small shops, the offline space. That's something that we're focusing on. We must have visited at least about 8,000 small kirana shops, sitting there, parked product managers from morning till evening, just to sit and observe, right? So we spend a lot of time in terms of looking at those nuances. One of the questions that you asked, that what keeps me awake at night? What keeps me awake at night is something very simple. Opportunities are immense. Resources are finite, right? Money is also finite in that sense. So the critical thing is to get your strategy right and to prioritize right, because there could be 50 things that you could do. What's that thing that you've missed? I think that's something that keeps us awake, saying that, have you captured it, right? Like into next year, what are the 3 things, right? Not the 4, not the 5. And selecting that becomes critical. The second aspect is turn the ship, and this is critical, right? For a large company like Google, right, starting to focus on a micro market or a micro problem or a small region is an exceptional challenge, right? I mentioned this in the beginning. It took me 4 years to convince Google to think about doing a localized payment solution, and hence we were actually the guinea pig or the test market in that way, saying that, okay, you know what, we'll set a small team of 10 people and you can start working on this, and then you can see how this scales. Thankfully, we've been able to prove that our call was right, and things have moved forward in a large extent. But this is a critical aspect, because for a product manager or leadership team sitting in Mountain View, for instance, right, understanding the nuances of what's happening in Indonesia, what's happening in India, how north is different, south is different, the SMB space. This is critical. And you need to take everyone in the organization along the way and turn the ship, right? So that has to be, that takes, that's a part of our culture, for instance, to take everyone together. And the third is address really large, big opportunities, right? So how do you actually zone in and say that, these are the 3, 4 things. We've kept it very simple. I think our strategy, we've kept it very simple as a team, as a vertical within whole of Google, saying that this is the principles that we will look at when we start designing products or we start bringing new products to life. Now, given that context within NBU, how do we look at things? We again broke this down into 3 areas, right? Like 1, get people online, because that's the starting point. People need to be online for us to have any kind of solution from the Google stable in that sense. The second aspect is get stuff. Because when people come online, they need to do stuff. It could be music, it could be content, it could be buying, it could be any of those things. And the third and the final aspect is manage money, because money becomes then a fundamental aspect which culminates transactions, which culminates everything. Given this structure, we started working towards different products to address each of these pieces, which we think completes the whole journey from digitizing an entire segment or an entire society. We launched Google Station, which is the free Wi-Fi product that we have. We have another product called Data Alley, which is, I'll take you all through this. We have Files Go, which is a file sharing solution, for instance. It's surprisingly the highest rated Google app. There is no app in Google that's rated as high as Files Go. There's Neighborly, and I'll explain what Neighborly we do, and then there is Stays, which is now GPay. Let me quickly just move in, right? Like, what is Ditali? Go back 2 years in time, and everybody used to do these chota recharges on data, right? Like you buy a 100 MB pack, or you buy a 200 MB pack. Most people do that globally, right? You look at most markets, right? 90% of the markets consume data in a similar manner. People buy data, and then in 10 days' time, they run out of data. And when they run out of data, they're not aware of where the data went. They're like, I just bought like 200 MB like 10 days ago. Where did that data go, for instance? Typically, what happens in that instant is that we're not looking at audiences like you and me, who are data savvy and hence, will not tolerate not having data. These are people, for instance, for whom paying that 100 rupees for data is a significant aspect. These people then switch off from the internet for the next 3 or 4 days, right? It takes them some amount of time to get back. In those 3 or 4 days, there's no consumption. There's no browsing, there's no consumption, there's no movie, there's no sharing, there's no WhatsApp, there's nothing, right? And then they'd again go into a micro, a data recharge in that sense. That was a problem that we were trying to solve for, saying that how do you ensure that even if you buy 200 MB of data, we can ensure that you're there through 7 days or the 30 days that you need to be there. So this is an intelligent data assistant. It tells you where you're consuming data and then provides you with rewards for taking certain action. Right? So hey, you download, for instance, this app, or you watch this movie, or you watch this ad from Unilever, and you get 10 MB free. But we're giving control back to the user so that they know how they're consuming data, right? And that becomes a critical aspect. We've piloted this in multiple markets. It's especially markets like Philippines, Vietnam, right? Those kind of markets where still you don't have geo and hence pricing is still a challenge, right? This is the other product that we have, which is called Files Go, which is a data sharing app, right? Or a file sharing app. Now here again, you have to look at it. At the side loading is a reality in the Indian market, right? You go to a store, you go to Jaipur, you can get 20 apps, you'll get 50 movies, and you'll get 5,000 songs. So you'll download multiple apps. It's very interesting. Some of the banks also get this done, right? Like the largest bank in India, the PSU bank, actually has a strategy of, anyone who walks into the store to side load the mobile banking app. Now, what people don't realize is that when you side load, that app can't be updated. Right? Because there is no, where do you update an app from? You update it from the Play Store, right? There is an ID which then is able to track which version of the app you're in and how, so if there is a bug, for instance, tomorrow, how do you update it? You can't update it. So even from a developer perspective, if they've shipped, it could be Uber. They've shipped a new version, right? They shipped a version with UPI now. A lot of people don't have it because they've side-loaded the app. Right? So that's a problem, and that we had to actually solve for. We're saying that how can you easily transfer files, between two phones, even if you don't have data. This is not data dependent, right? It's proximity, right? It's a faster version. We call it WhisperNet, which is faster than Bluetooth or any other thing. How do you actually transfer, but still create a linkage so that when you have data sometime later, you can still update the app, and the consumer's experience again is not broken. Right? So that's again something, again consumer insights saying that business problem, consumer problem, let's simplify it in a very meaningful way. The third aspect is Google from a search perspective, right? What do? We provide answers technically, right? We organize information and we make it universally accessible. But think about hyper-local information. Who is a good tuition teacher for maths in Vasant Kunj? Who is a good tailor, right? That you can get something done. This information resides technically within you or within a close circle. You go to a neighbor and you ask this information, right? That data is something that just doesn't exist anywhere digitally, right? Yes, there are question answers somewhere and you'll see this in certain blogs, but it isn't organized. And hence that became a universe of data which we could again bring back, which is completely meaningful to users. But it's useful only to users within a locality. And that's the direction that we're actually moving to. There's universal data which is useful for everyone. What's the weather today? What's the rating of this movie? I want to watch this video. But for instance, who's a good tuition teacher in Vasant Kunj or sector 42 is something only people out there know, in a community know. And that's the level that we want to actually move to. And this is actually our attempt in going into that direction, which is seeding this. We've actually piloted this in Gurgaon and Mumbai, for instance, and only in 2 localities of getting all the information in the locality, right? We consolidated close to 10 million questions during this beta phase of something which is actually relevant only to people in Andheri and Powai, right? Imagine the number of questions. All of this essentially is in chat today. Do you know a good tailor? Where can I get mithai, right? Or who's a good tailor? We want to bring that information which actually resides and make it again accessible, right? So that's again something that we've developed. Again, nothing to do with the US, right? Our communities are stronger out here, our building associations, and there'll always be a chat group only for the building, right? That's the information. There's a wealth of information that we've brought in there. Google Station, this again is, it's a very simple problem. When we started off this 3 years ago, there was free data available with Railtel, right? If you actually look at the optic fiber networks in India, right, the better networks are actually with ISRO, the defense, DRDO, and Railtel. Railtel actually has the best optic fiber cable across the whole country, and they never used it, right? It was never being used, and hence there is an opportunity. Now, I don't know, I mean, some of you all must have traveled to the US, but try using, the free Wi-Fi at Starbucks and compare that experience even at an airport in Delhi or Bombay, right? You go to an airport and you want to use that free Wi-Fi, it's painful. The speed is bad, sign-up process is bad, right? You're waiting for an OTP. It's not a great experience, right? So therein lies a problem as far as the evolved traveler is concerned. The next aspect that we observed was that even young people or anyone, right, when you actually go to a Wi-Fi zone, you'll end up downloading a lot more things, whether it's music, movies, right, you'll YouTube offline, right, you'll do all these things, and then you'll switch off data as soon as you step out of office. Or hence the idea became that, how can we actually simplify this experience? The reference to Starbucks in US essentially is, it's actually Google that manages the Wi-Fi at all Starbucks. Started off as a small project with a couple of Google employees saying this sucks, we can do this better, and then figuring out, along the way we invented hardware to actually manage the network, the optimization, the speed. So we're actually able to create more magic. So if you give a 32 Mbps normal line, for instance, we can actually make it work like if it's 500 Mbps. right? How we cache data, we know that, you'd see this in YouTube. It's a great example. You use a lot of music streaming or video streaming apps. You look at the speed at which YouTube loads. There's hardly any buffering. You can forward it, it won't hang. But you look at a lot of other apps in the market, when you try forwarding it or pausing it, for instance, right, it hangs. That's technology at the back end, right? There's an acceleration caching technology that we actually fundamentally use. This is essentially to use Indian Railways, 625 million people who keep passing through Indian Railways through the year. Can we give them a taste of what fast internet is? And can we get them to start looking at things, right? There was a strategic reason as well. It was our first large-scale plan. And this is true. We're now expanding this into smart cities. Sometimes when I'm in a bad network, I try to get into the, Mumbai free Wi-Fi provided by the government. It's like, it's a battle. And then finally, Pays, right? This again was a simple fact that the payment solution that Google had, whether it was Android Pay or Google Wallet, was a very developed market perspective, right? Cards, tokenization, NFC. And you have to realize that even Reliance Jio phones, which are 30,000 rupees, the live phones didn't have NFC in India, right? So we're trying to bring that down. Out here, we would have actually struggled because less than 16% of Android phones would have worked with NFC. And hence, we had to rethink of a solution saying that what can we actually use to make payments simple. Now, while we may have started off from UPI, right, the aspect is very simple. We want to be an intelligent layer. From a consumer perspective, the consumer just needs to say pay, and we should be in a position to be able to tell the user automatically either use UPI, use cards, or even use a wallet. Right? So by next year, we'll have all of this integrated in that sense, where you just go and type something in Google search and you don't do too much of research. You just take it natively of the results which come in. Payments should essentially be the same. When a consumer wants to pay, we should intelligently be able to tell the consumer, yeah, this is a payment should go through your card, and this should go to your debit card, or this should even go through your wallet, for instance. We think of ourselves as a very neutral, objective platform out here, right? Trying to drive transactions both from a consumer side, from a merchant side, and make that fairly seamless. So there's a lot of work that we've actually done here to actually bring in. So if I actually look at machine learning, for instance, right? It's a buzzword, everybody speaks about it. I think even at Google, we can do like 20 times more than what we're doing. But the only two aspects that I think that we've done a really good job is in UPI, we can predict, right, 30 minutes before which bank is going to go down. So we block transactions before the bank actually goes down. Right? It's established patterns. Right? We've been doing this, we process, I think last month we crossed 150 million transactions spread over 105 banks. The biggest pain point is you do a transaction and the debit happens, but the credit doesn't, right? And that just, when we started off with 20 customer service executives. By the end of the week, we had a team of about 320, right? We had to just expand because there was just so many issues in that sense, right? So those are things that we actually spend a lot of time in terms of optimizing this for. Similarly, risk, right? I think a spate of things where we are actually able to predict if that's the right person using the phone. Even the banks don't tend to know. We tend to inform them saying that these accounts we think have been taken over and you actually need to look at. But this has been a good journey for us. So in the last 11 odd months, we've crossed about 25 million active users. Unlike VC-funded firms, we don't have to chase vanity metrics. So for us, active means a person who does a transaction in the last 30 days. That's something that we have to look at. What's also interesting is that UPI till date has only 42 million unique people who have ever done a transaction. That's the sum total of people in the whole industry across all apps. We have 25 million of that. We've crossed about 800 million. These are slightly dated. We're close to 1 billion transactions. We're close to $40 billion. And this is interesting because, Sailash mentioned this. The numbers are changing. 3 years back with BCG, I published a report which said that, Jiten was there, $500 billion. Amrish, when you were there, $500 billion of transaction. You know what we estimated as the size of the P2P industry between BCG and Google? $60 billion. Right? We're already crossing 40 billion. right? We do like, I think last month we crossed $4 billion in transactions. 82% of that is P2P, 18% of that is essentially what we're looking at least from a number of transaction sense, is P2M transactions. But there's just so much more to do, right? And as I said, from our perspective, it was a team of people who actually came, wanted to keep it really simple. And our governing mantras to a large extent is very, very simple. Know the user, spend a lot of time on that, turn the ship because you need to take the whole organization together, and 3, address big opportunities, right? Life is short, address big opportunities, make it count. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll request you to remain on stage. Option is seated or standing. That's up to you.
I'll stand here.
All right. So we have a chance to ask Sujit some questions. Some questions. All right.
Yeah, the 3 of you all can't ask questions, right? Like, come on, this is fine.
you combine the question. That's fine. Okay, so maybe three main questions. So make it good questions, and then give an opportunity towards the people at the back as well to ask questions as well.
Let's go first. Be any which ways.
Yeah, you call him later, right? Yeah. All right. Anybody?
Okay. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for having Google Tej as a product. It's a fabulous product. One thing. I see Google as a tech leader in like the entire world as well. So talking about India. So now you are like trying to. So every time you want anything to be successful, you have to take the entire ecosystem along with you. So you are empowering like devices ecosystem. Say we can say Jio is empowering the internet ecosystem. Now you're talking about payments. So being the tech leader, you have to also partner with a lot of banks. So I just wanted to know how are you like helping out banks to make like their infrastructure better? Are you like partnering with say government organization to come up with something like some more initiatives like UPI, Bheem or something of that sort? If that is happening, like the entire ecosystem, how do we take the entire ecosystem upwards?
So, that's a great question, and my question was linked to that, so I'm going to add into it right away.
Sure.
Very well framed question. Just a simple addition is, now that you can get into the ecosystem, do you think that Google could create a UPI 2.0 on their own entirely?
It's tricky. Is this getting recorded? It's getting recorded. Okay, let me answer your question first, right? I think it's super important to take the ecosystem together. I kept mentioning the same fact that we are a very neutral, objective platform in that sense, right? Let me give you a small insight, right? When demonetization happened, right, Google Tej was ready, right? We were actually testing it with employees, but we were ready with one bank. We were just ready with one bank, and we could have hit the market. And there's a huge debate internally, right? Like, there's 99% of the team. Demonetization is an opportunity of a lifetime, right? Like, why wouldn't you launch an app in that sense? There's huge debate internally, execs flying in, right? And 2 of us stood and fought through, and we said we will not launch because 3 of the other banks were not ready, right? So it was very painful at that point of time for the small team that was working on this. There was like 15, 20 of us. But we made a choice not to launch at that point of time because our partner banks wasn't ready, right? We launched then in September, right? That's 10 months later because we had to get the other 3 partner banks ready. And we had put our neck out there saying that UPI, we wanted a multi-PSP ecosystem. And if we were at the forefront and then at the first opportunity of gold, we backed off, that would send a wrong precedence, right? So we took the high moral ground out there, very consciously. Even today, I think it's the best decision that we've made. So that was the first thing, to establish trust with our partners, saying that, we're true partners, we're just not going to do this alone, and we want everybody to come together. So that's appreciated by the 4 large banks. The second aspect, the moment we launched, we crashed, right? The first 48 hours, is like a nightmare in that sense because first on day 1, within 1 hour of we launching, Bank A collapsed, right? They just couldn't take the transaction volumes that we were hitting, right? So we moved into the other two banks, for instance, and within 24 hours, Bank 2 collapsed, right? And these are two of India's largest banks, right? I wouldn't name them in that sense. So we actually flew in people, right? Globally, right? Our India team, our tech team. We went and actually sat, looked at the whole stack, right? And started giving inputs to the CTO. So for nearly 14 days, my engineers were stationed at two of the banks. Today, I can guarantee that at least with two of these banks, UPI volumes can go 20x from what it is today. Those two banks will be stable, right? Because we are actually able to take down everything, put it back, give them advice. So yes, in that sense, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. You all know the pain as much as we do. When payments fail, right? That's not a great experience at all, right? For your clients, that's the most painful aspect when they come to you and say that success rate, right? Like, why does this happen? It's not your fault. It's not our fault. It needs to be done. So that's something that we're 200% focused on. To Amrish's question on 2.0, right? I think we've been spending a lot of time with NPCI much before Tej. I think the first 2.5 years, a lot of the advice on the architecture was something that we spent time. So we actually had, given that it's a mobile solution and Android is a critical aspect, right? So the initial architect spent a lot of time with us. Can we redo the whole spec? Yes, absolutely. I think that's something that we've honestly offered to do it free of cost and give it to them, but make it truly world-class, scalable, and fairly simple than what it today is. So can we do it? Yes, but we'll offer it as a service, saying that we'll build it out and give it to you, to the industry in that sense. I don't think it's in our interest to run a network by ourselves. That's not what we're interested in. I'll give you a simple example, right? Like, there's no country in the world which downloads more apps than India on the Play Store. No country. We clock more than 1.4 billion apps being downloaded every single month in India. Right? That's like 15, 20 billion. And now with data moving up, it's like far different. But if you look at monetization on that, people paying for even 1 rupee or 10 rupees, right? It's non-existent. We'll be country number 87 as far as monetization is. Number 1 country on download, number 87th country. I think Mali and Sierra Leone do more revenue than, just kidding. But, there are African countries which actually do a lot more revenue than, Play in that sense. That's the interest, right? Like, how do you tackle that? So we can solve the problem, we're solving revenue problems for Google itself. You just look at commute, right? Tuition teachers, let's say in a city, trying to commute and take guitar classes or trying to take maths classes. You know what they can do? They can do a hangout with 10 students. What do you need to solve for that? Data is done. Technology as a hangout is available, or you could use any video chatting app. What do you need for that? You need a payment layer in that, right? Where somebody can go and publish saying that, guitar classes, $200 a class, open, join every day from 4 to 6, make a payment and just come in. That's the level of simplicity that you should be able to take it to. And you can organize all of these kind of services, right? Because the problem is that in this 40 billion of P2P transactions that we're saying, there's a significant amount of P2M. It just gets masked as a P2P, but it's actually a P2M.
Very cool. Another question, please. Anurag.
First of all, thanks so much for coming and giving us a great talk. Just wanted to get your views on, so obviously you've spoken about payments, but credit, we've obviously heard reports of Google also trying to get into India and trying to do some experiments around credit, so just some views on that. And a little bit if you can talk about, you said go after the big opportunities, which was one of the key things. So how do you sort of discard what you're not going to do and sort of keep focus on what you're doing?
Sure. Well, let me split that. You had two questions out there. One is around credit and the other is essentially around big opportunities and discarding it. Credit, everybody agrees, right? You speak to both these gentlemen here and here, everybody will say that credit is like the big play. For the last 4 or 5 years, so I used to lead financial services within Google, and I used to keep going and advising all the banks and all the mutual funds, right, about the opportunity in digital. Let's look at a simple, now we have to start somewhere, and I'll tell you where we've started from. We took personal loans as a segment. It's a $3 billion market a month. It's invariably given to people who have a score of 720 or 750, yeah. But even if you go and take a loan from your own bank, where you've had a 10-year-old relationship, they'll make you jump through hoops, right? So you go into net banking, it will say you're pre-approved for an offer of 5 lakhs or 2 lakhs. You click on it, it will give you a whole form. The first field in the form is what is your name, right? You just logged into net banking, for God's sake, right? Like, why should you fill your name and address? Right, now you do all of that, right? 50 fields. Now in the offline world, a DSA will come and say, "Ki, sir, aap yahan sign kijiye aur yahan sign kijiye. And give me a visiting card, everything I will take care of." But in online, as a consumer, you have to sit and fill because, you know, it will say, "Sorry, you cannot move forward till you fill this." So you fill a 55 field form and you submit it. When you submit it, it says, "Thank you for your application. We'll get back to you." You just said it's pre-approved, right? Then somebody from customer service will call you. "So you've applied." "Yes, I applied. I'll send somebody." "No, but I applied online." "No, but I'm going to send somebody." You know, the Charlie comes, you know, he calls, you have to find a time when you're free, he'll land there. And they'll come and say, "Sir, aapka KYC chahiye. And you need a photo." You're like, "I just filled the whole form," right? So we have to convince banks. So this comes to your first question, say that we have to convince banks that, you know what, you know, we've been telling them for a long time as Google that, you know, you need to simplify it. So this we took into our hands and we said, let's take the pre-approved universe that you have, right? You guys do a shoddy job. We'll show you how this is done. Using technology, for instance, every single field is pre-populated, right? So inside GPay, you will see, you know, loan from ICICI. Tap into it. It will have a slider with, you know, the amount that you want. Tap. Something you don't have to enter. It's all taps. Tap. And it'll say, this is your pre-filled information, confirm. Tap, agreement, tap. That's it, money in your account, right? So that's what we're going to launch in the next 2 weeks. We've got 5 banks. So essentially, everyone who's taking loans, you know, has a pre-approved loan virtually from their bank, at least 20% of, you know, people within banking. We want to simplify that, and then we'll move down the value chain in that sense. So it is, yes, critical. It's a critical aspect, you know, at least payments for us is like a service, right? You have to somewhere, you know, your CFO is here, right? A P&L needs to also look nice at some point of time. So that's an aspect out there. Your second question? You know, there's no right answer to that, right? We rely on the first thing, which is know your user and gain insights. And that tells us, for instance, that, see, it's a mix of 2 things. You look at users and then intuition, right? But to a large extent for us, that user research is spending hours and hours and hours. You tend to glean something. And second, we don't tend to use any research firms. All our research is done internally by our own teams in that sense, right? So we think of that as being very useful. We have experts who will structure this. So between intuition and knowing the user, I think you'll somewhere arrive at, you know, these are the 2 or 3 opportunities. And then it's a factor of prioritization from there.
Hi, I have one question. Firstly, I want to thank you for sharing your insights. This was very interesting. I have 2 very related questions. One is that India is kind of a cashback-driven economy. It's been very difficult to gain customers' loyalty and, you know, kind of increase stickiness. So how do you kind of plan to tackle that issue? And a related question to that, because of this problem of cashbacks and other things, the customer acquisition cost is very high, especially if I have to go to a mom and pop store or an SMB, which is like the long tail. The customer acquisition cost is very high, which impacts the commercial aspects of things. So what is the strategy on how we can tackle that?
Sure. You know, we spent a lot of time on the first question before we launched, because from a money perspective, we had very small amount when we started off. Like for the first month, we had certain milestones internally that we had to show and actually prove that, you know, we had to do like, I think NPCI got this in writing from us that in a year's time, we will do 5 million transactions, right? That's documented as a requirement for approval, right? And we did like 17 million transactions in our first month, which was interesting. You're spot on when you say that there's a cashback-driven market. When we looked at the cashback market, what we saw is that everybody offers a very flat thing, which means that you do this transaction and we'll give you 50 rupees back, and we'll give you 100 rupees back. We realized that we would burn down the house if we walked down that path, especially, we're all companies, normal companies with CFOs in that sense, right? So aspirations are different, which is why we created the scratch card, because we wanted variability out there. And we always say that we'll give between 10 rupees and 50 rupees, right? And then you'll have better luck next time also coming in out there. But technically, if you actually look at it, we're about 30-40% of the UPI market. What we end up spending is less than 1/20th of competition. Because what we are able to do, this is where we use a lot of algos and intelligence coming in from a machine perspective. So if you do the same transaction and he does the same transaction, you've done 10 transactions, he's done 10 transactions, the rewards that you earn are different. There's a variable element that we're able to bring in, which then ensures that I have 25 million users, because we're able to reward the right user. And that is something which is lost on the industry, right? Because you'll reward somebody who's going to hop and not stick with you, and somebody, your most loyal customer, for instance, you're going to reward them the same. That just doesn't make sense, right? So that's a challenge, and you need to optimize for that. Again, it was consumer insight, right? You take a flight in India, right? And you'll get this, you'll get this card, which they give you, right? The scratch card, So even in business class, you'll see somebody like putting in, trying to actually check. That's consumer insight, right? That whether it's Tambola, whether it's, people playing for Diwali, for instance, that's a consumer insight. That it's a thing that people like, right? So if a variable element comes in, it's something that they like. Now, it took us months not to design this aspect. It took us months to be able to credit that money instantly. I don't know if you all noticed, but when you do the scratch card, right, and if you win something, within 5 seconds the money hits your bank account, right? That for us was about building trust. Because rather than me saying that I'll give you this money, if the bank itself is saying this money has come in, right, it's extremely, it builds trust, because your bank is sending in that. Another consumer insight when we were doing all this research was, having money in a wallet, I get money in the wallet. Like if I fly, I book through an OTA, money comes into a wallet, and I've got 1,000 rupees. In my next transaction, when I want to use the 1,000 rupees, it'll say, sorry, you can use only 50 out of that 1,000 rupees. So the concept again from a user insight was, 10 rupees in the bank is more valuable than 150 rupees in a wallet with restrictions. That's very simple, consumer-driven, things that we've looked at, and then we've actually taken it. Now on the customer acquisition side, right, we've actually, after 10, 12 months, right, this is the first month where we have gone on TV. We never did advertising for our product. 72% of our users are referrals, right? 20% is organic. Though we're the largest advertising network, right, ads, Google's own house ads, contribute for less than 5% of our user base. So we don't actually, so the point is that you've got to identify that what's that one thing which can have a domino effect, right? And that's something that we're trying to tap into. So we spend more time on that rather than optimize, create a story which then creates pull or demand.
Very cool. Guys, we are out of time for questions. I'm very sorry about that. Sujit, would you be around for some time?
Yeah,
so you might have opportunities of having... Definitely, I completely agree with your question. All right, last question, given the mic.
Integration of blockchain technology for more seamless and secure transfers in coming future, like how now largest bank is also reading and researching about adopting that technology. So what's your take on that?
No, across the board, I think it has to move forward, right? I think
the banning of cryptocurrency in India, but eventually something came very good as a blockchain. So how we can more use it wisely?
I think it's a matter of competition out here, right? I think everybody's woken up in the fact that technology has been behind the curve. And now when you have a ton of players actually coming in, bringing in new aspects, right? Like we brought in proximity. We brought in proximity not for anything else. We felt there's a women audiences we felt weren't comfortable sharing their mobile numbers, why should you share a mobile number with some random player or person, right? And hence we brought in the proximity. And I think a lot of these things, the industry is now at a stage where it's at an inflection point from an innovation perspective, right? Where everybody is going to innovate and actually move the market forward. So it's just a matter of time for, banks or anyone in that space to actually wake up and move forward.
All right, I'm going to hijack this. One last question, moderator rights to ask the last question.
Absolutely.
Any specific expectations from us as a partner? And you can be as brief as you like.
As broad or as Rahul?
I think there's definitely areas that we've been working very, very close in that sense. I think we're now at a stage where we're moving beyond UPI. We've made big bets in cards, for instance, of being able to actually change the market. We've launched UPI, but if you still ask me, I think, debit hasn't been tapped yet, right? We haven't had a great story on debit. That's the big bet that we are placing into next year. And that's what we're bringing in, issuers along, we're bringing banks along, 7, 8 banks. We're working closely. It's taken us 18 months of work with 7 issuers, right, to actually focus and create a new payment flow for debit cards and credit cards. So that's a space that I'm working closely, with PayU, and hopefully we should be amongst the first to actually launch, and that's a big play. And then it brings in some other dimensions on merchants, right? Like small merchants is again a space that we are very, very closely doing our research, spending time on. That those are 2 spaces I think that there's enough of room for us to collaborate and take this partnership forward.
Very cool. Thank you for that. And
thank you guys. All the best. Thank you very much.
So before we end, and I know you out of Golo Coast completely. Okay. Big and heartfelt thanks for you, a valuable partner, for taking our time, caring enough to come here and give us your insights. We really appreciate your time and effort. Amrish, if you can say 2 words and give us a token of appreciation to Sujit.
Thank you. Pleasure being here, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Absolutely enjoyed the conversation. Deep insights. Loved it. We've had a few beers, but this was really a good conversation for you to be here.
You didn't like the beer conversation.
I have to make the sales pitch.
Sure.
What are you doing with 350 people supporting you on payment transactions? We do about 1.5 million transactions a day. Our ops team is less than 120 people. We could solve
this is customer service, right?
Our customer service is smaller than that. We could solve a few problems for you,
I'm happy to, hand over that whole piece. A lot of them actually, are solving for the industry, right? With NPCI and SBI. But yeah,
quick gift from us. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
No worries.
All right. Guys, this is Sujit and Sandeep as well. A lot of you will be familiar. Both of them are here. If you have more questions in this regard, catch up with them, grill them, ask them what we can do better for them. So thank you guys for your time. Magic words, it's a break time. All right. Now, the break has progressively gotten shorter from what I got in the morning. Okay, so you have just 10 minutes. Please, smokes or washroom, pick one. All right. And I'll be using this extremely auspicious Ganti to call you back. If you hear this, wait. If you hear this, you have 1 minute to come back, not go. All right, 10 minutes from now, starting.
Hello? Yeah.
Hello. Guys, please take a seat. I know it's really hard to come back from tea, smoke and washroom. आवाज नहीं आ रहा? Okay. Guys, please take a seat. This is my 10th, please. Take a seat. Have a seat. Come back in. All right, please have a seat.
Thank you.
अभी आप बैठो, आपको बताता हूँ मैं. Have a seat, I'll call you. चलो.
Not required.
Because shutting the door, अंदर आ जाओ और ये outside or inside.
Okay. Thanks to all of you to be back in reasonable enough time post the break. So we appreciate that. That's really good. The next on the agenda is a panel which will talk about credit. Right? We are extremely excited about credit as a company, and I hope you, as part of this journey, are excited as well. Just to give you a sense, we are really accelerating as a company on credit. Right? Moving from buy now, pay later as the beginning part of our journey, conducting a lot of experiments over there, now jumping onto EMI and personal loans and doing all of that. And the good news is all of these pieces are growing. Right? The numbers are showing that all of these pieces are doing well, which means there's definitely something fantastic and stellar being done by the team which is working on credit. The leaders and the team, everybody's working on something fantastic there. And they have lessons and learnings to be shared and also their vision going forward as well. Let's hear more from them. Can I get the credit panel on the stage, please? This is the team, guys, who's been responsible for making LazyPay a household name. When I say household name, now, there are hardly any people I meet who don't know what LazyPay is. Right? That's extremely encouraging as a product proposition. So this panel has Jitin as the moderator, and then we have two more folks I will introduce. I'll start with Jitin first. Now, I WhatsApped Jitin yesterday evening. I asked him, Jitin, what do you want me to say about you? Jitin's exact word was, ha ha ha, whatever you want to say. So Jitin, you know exactly what's coming after this. Right? It's like getting Seth MacFarlane for the Oscars, so you know what's going to happen here. Okay, so Jitin, from my perspective, you know, I've really enjoyed working with you.
Same
so
here, man.
I'll say good things about you. So I see Jitin as somebody who's terribly passionate about entrepreneurship. And besides all the success and everything that we hear about, he's terribly passionate about entrepreneurship and the value it brings to India. Right? I see him talk about this and I see him feeling this every single time he works. Right? I see him as a strong believer in agile innovation. Right? He does a lot of that. Experimental business models, right? And products. And to summarize this all, I think as a core value which I see from Jitin very often is it takes a lot of courage to achieve something like this. Right? And that's the wrapper which goes around that. And surprisingly, when we ask him the list of embarrassing question, this also comes out there as well. So we asked him this question, what's the problem that keeps you up at night? Poker?
That's true, man.
I know it. Come on, you guys are playing poker all the time. So he says, I worry about delinquency numbers which can change business dynamics. That's what keeps him up. What change would you like to see in the world? He says, basically, consumers should have access, convenience, and affordability to lead their life, and how it can be made better in each respect. Okay. What's the one thing we should know about him before he starts speaking? He recently invested in illegal car
racing league.
Illegal car racing league, which can organize street car racing, first of its kind in India. Right, so he's doing things like that. What is he most proud of? So he says he's still young, and maybe will get many things to be proud of when he becomes old. So far, when I think that I have had the courage of leaving my corporate job at the age of 29 and pursue my dream, that's something he's proud of.
Thank you, Amber. So I know this session is given to me just before the lunch, so always on the tough spot, and because LazyPay is the team, or the consumer team actually loses the money, so that's why we had to earn our spot. So thanks, Amrish, for that. Guys, one important announcement before we move into the session. So I'm carrying my poker chips. So whoever wants to, yeah, for the night. So whoever wants to give registration can give it to Rahil. Just text her. Yeah. So we can play that. Okay. Coming to the session. So you know, again, before we move into the session, I just want to share my experience recently, which literally at least changed my perspective quite a lot. So 2 weeks back, I was in Singapore, And I was invited by Sequoia for their Founders Day event. And you know what, like this was a lifetime experience for me. The reason, there was Michael Phelps, which came into the event. And literally the way you're sitting on the first row, Michael Phelps was on the stage, and I was sitting on the first row. And I was just hearing him and simply mesmerized the things which he told. So I thought for this audience, it makes perfect sense, at least for me to share what I learned. So the three things which I picked up in terms of what he told. So now one of the things which he said when people asked him that, Michael, what you are, like what is that, why you are winning every time, or why you were winning every time, 28 medals, Olympic medals, world record which nobody could break so far. Like why this happened? He said, I did only one thing which others were not doing. He said, I practiced 365 days. I did not take a break for 13 years, not a single day break. Now 365-day practice means, he said, I have 52 days more than others to practice. And what happens in swimming, by the way, I'm not a swimmer, but what happens in the swimming practice is, as per him, that once you take a break, it takes you to come back to rhythm 2 more days. So he said, I got that advantage, and that's why I was where I was in terms of the advantage. So clearly the perseverance of, or the goal of achieving things can change many things. The second thing which I picked up from him was, you know, your wins last till your next game. So, you know, the question asked to him was, which win is what you remember the most? And he said, I don't remember any of my win actually. I just remember my losses. So, so what I lost, I can tell you exactly why I lost and where I made the mistake. Now I think that's something to learn about. The guy who has won created world records, won 28 medals, doesn't remember any of his win, as per him. So, but he still remembered why he lost a particular game and what was the issue. The third and the last quote, which I'll put up, which sums it up what I just said, he said that everything is possible as long as you put your mind to it, you put the work and time into it. I think your mind really controls everything. So this is where I think big learning. And when I see you know, the people in this room talking about the early success of lazy pay and the early things around lazy pay, I actually quite much relate to it, that you have to be at it, literally at it, to achieve anything. And what it also means is, whatever you achieved so far is actually irrelevant in a bigger scheme of things. So the goals are way bigger. It's not time to celebrate anything. So, but that being said, let's start the credit panel. And I think before that, I'll also give some overview while I'll keep sending, I keep sending monthly emails around lazy pay update and how we are doing and what are the challenges we are seeing. But as a quick update on the business, I'll just give, considering we have all exceptional leaders in the room. So now we have reached just close to 1 million transactions a month. That's the run rate we have reached. I think like 18 months back, even imagining 1 million a month, literally for this team was like a daunting task. Forget achieving it. Then on our personal loan side, now we receive around 6,000 to 7,000 loan requests a day. And that is when we have not spent any marketing dollars so far. So this is all organic searches which are coming to us. Mother, this is scary as well. That means all the bad consumers are also coming to us. The third thing which I'll say is, in fact, this week, in our Android app, we crossed 1 million downloads. And again, we did not push it through marketing. It was all organic searches and the organic downloads. Now, you know, for a consumer business, like the way Sujit was saying earlier that, you know, what matters is the MAU and the DAUs. I think that our MAU numbers, and thanks to the Anurag and team, our MAU numbers have just reached little under 500,000. Now, that was a number which was unbelievable for us because we never focused so much on the app side and all. And that just last 3 months, we started focusing a bit more on the product experience on the app side. And thanks to all UX team and the product team and the tech team, which made it work, I think the results are showing up. So good. With this, we start credit panel. So we have with us Pallav. Pallav heads Lazy Pay business, and Abhishek. Abhishek has been a long timer with PayU Group. So what you spent, 5 years now? Yeah. So, and payments he started with, and now he drives the Lazy Pay product. So Pallav, the first question for you. So, PayU is into payments, and then you see so many credit players which are, like we saw Google coming in, and we saw all other NBFCs. They're like, I heard the last number count was 15,000 NBFCs providing credit. How do you see this whole credit ecosystem in India from PayU's perspective?
Yeah, interesting question. So, and actually when we started, I think everyone had the same question in mind, right? That why is PayU getting into it? Will they be successful? Will they be able to pull this off? That was a doubt which I think apart from the team, everyone else, definitely had. But I think the strength so let me give you some context of the ecosystem, right? So today what happens is, while personal loans, the book in India today is about $150 billion, customers who have received a loan is only about 9 crore. It's all spread between these 9 crore people in a population of 130 crore, right? If you look at credit cards, that's barely 4 crore. It's about to touch 4 crore, right? Because every bank, every NBFC is going after the same people. If you look at it from other perspective, if you look at so this is people who want to get a loan. The other perspective is providers, right? So there is banks, NBFCs, and now fintechs. Banks and NBFCs are going after the same base, right? Everyone in this room will get multiple, messages saying, you have an instant personal loan. Why don't you go for a loan? While there is a complete, huge segment which is new to credit, which nobody is willing to lend to, right? Now coming to Jiten's question of, why did we get into this? We got into this because we have customer database which was completely lying unused, right? There are companies which will literally kill to have a data like this. Right? We are just using this data and reaching out to segment which no bank and NBFC is willing to touch. Right? So one, on the credit side, on the payment side, through Lazy Pay, we were able to provide convenience which nobody was providing. Right? And we realized even with a limit as low as 15,000, people had actually started using it for credit, which was a signal that we need to move into credit fast because there's a lot of unmet demand, which is, I think, what we are doing today, especially the segment which nobody cares for today.
Sure. So moving on to you, Abhishek, considering you drive the product side of Lazy Pay, so can you just describe how has been this whole Lazy Pay product journey has been, and like what are the variants, and how did you go about deciding what variants to launch?
Yeah. So I'll briefly talk about the journey. So as Pallav mentioned, so we had lots of consumer data, right? So and when we talk about payments, the most important matrix that is there is the success rate, right? So getting these two things together, so we thought, let's remove payment out of the purchase itself, right? So let's turn the problem on its head, and let's say let's just let the user confirm the purchase at that point of time, and let the payment happen later, right? So that's why the pay later with Lazy Pay is what the first product that we launched with. So it's a very simple construct and very simple product, right? At the base of it, where the customer just comes onto the merchant pings with our system whether can I give Lazy Pay to this customer or not. Basis that the user sees the Lazy Pay option and just confirms the transaction with an OTP, and maybe like for a repeat purchase, just a swipe. So on the face of it, for the customer, it's all about convenience. For the merchants, it's all about higher success rates. But the larger question and the entire the tech behind it is where it gets complex, right? So because the most important question is to give or not to give, right? And how much. So that's where the decisioning and the underwriting comes into play, where we take the decision whether to underwrite the customer in milliseconds, and it's on the fly. And that's how we started on this journey, right? So, so Sujit in his previous session was talking about 1 million transactions happening on the first day. So, in fact, we started with 100 transactions in a week, and that too, there is an interesting story which I don't know if you know. So, LazyPay went live by mistake. So it was not intended to go live. I mean, we had planned for a launch 3 days later, but somehow it got turned on one of the merchants, and we started seeing transactions come in. So, I mean, we've seen the growth from, say, 100 transactions a week, and then it took us around 3 months to hit 1,000 per day. And now, as Jitin mentioned, we are like at 1 million transactions in a month. So it's been a very interesting journey. There's lots of learnings, right? So in credit, essentially, it's very easy to give credit. It's very easy to bump up the volumes. But it's always about getting the delinquencies under control, right? So there was a phase where we did not grow at all in terms of volumes, in terms of transactions. But we primarily worked on solving for the underwriting problem. Right, so that's what we did over a period of full year, right? And that's when we saw that there's lots of repeat usage that is coming onto LazyPay. So we started with limits as low as 1,500 per user, going up to 10,000. But even that, we saw a lot of users are running out of limits very frequently. Right, so that's when we launched on the app an option to the user where he can give us some data, bump up his limit. And that's when we partnered with the NBFCs and actually launched a full onboarding process for the NBFC where he could do his KYC, set up his NACH, and get a limit up to 1 lakh. And since he was on the app, so we could also basically give out an option of a direct credit in form of a personal loan, right? So that's the second product that we launched. And very recently, we piloted the merchant EMI option where the customer can also come onto the merchant, just like LazyPay, instant credit. He can also purchase a product on interest-bearing EMI. So that's how the transition has been from LazyPay to personal loan and then the EMI.
Sure. So Pallav, back to you. So Abhishek just said that in the credit business, very easy to pump up volume. And I think I remember that's what we did in September of 2017. And then we hit the issue of delinquency around 18%. I mean, we can share honestly with this audience. 18, yeah. So so that means 1 out of 5 consumers not repaying.
Average scale was far lower.
So can you share what went on to your mind back then? I mean, when we hit 18%, everybody was on our head that, guys, this business is non-sustainable. It's time to wrap up this business. Maybe it's not our cup of tea. What was going in your mind? And what sort of you did to fix that?
So I'll be very honest, right? Because this is an internal forum. I miss that time. Because I think that was a time when you know, the way the team came together, the team was performing, you know, at its absolute peak. I mean, it was like a Ferrari, right? So team was at its peak, be it, you know, underwriting, be it product. Everyone was, you know, you hear about silos and everything. And if you looked at that team, it was so driven that we have to get this right. Right? So you're right. So there was a lot of resistance. We kept, you wouldn't know, but we kept getting a lot of questions on, you know, this product should not continue. It's hard to believe today, especially even if you talk to external market, it's hard to believe that, you know, PayU would have said this product should be stopped, but that is a fact, right? And I think, so our only thing was that we have to prove that this team can deliver frankly. Amrish today mentioned, you know, when he talked about LazyPay, he mentioned crazy team. Right? And I was just thinking that's actually very true. When you talk to any individual member, you know, seems very calm, composed, you know, very polite team. But actually beneath that, you know, is an engine which is completely crazy. Right? So Yeah, so I think
Yeah,
it's all about
I know your room I've seen, and in that room all the time there is you shouting at others and others shouting at you happening. So that keeps happening, right? So coming back to you, Abhishek. So, so how do you see, like there are so many pay later products, right? I mean, there's Ola Credit, which Rahul pushing too much, it seems like. So then there is Simple, and then there is, and then there's Zest Money or whatever. So how are you seeing Lazy Pay being different? I mean, this is a question I keep getting from our PayU folks, that what is so great about Lazy Pay? How it is different? Everybody is doing pay later. So how do you see this product?
So as I said, like from a consumer perspective, it's a very simple product, right? So the crux of it lies at the back end, right? So where we have invested a lot in terms of bringing our delinquencies down, and also to stage like where we can increase the volumes without actually worrying about the delinquency. So that's been our strength. From a customer point of view, I think the Lazy Pay now we have built into it as a single platform, where under a single credit limit there are multiple use cases that he can have, right? So buy now pay later is one of the use cases. Personal loan is another. So while we have competitions individually in all these products, but as a single product under single product umbrella, there's no one providing all these use cases, right? So a single limit that he gets, say for 50,000, he can go and purchase on Swiggy. Out of that, he can buy a ticket. He can also take a personal loan. Also, he can get things on EMI. So it's the whole suite of whole umbrella of products that we offer. I think that's something which makes us a differentiator. Also, from the back end of it, so we have access to the data and the distribution channels, right? So that also kind of gives us an edge over all the other partners, so that we can make the credit accessible to the user when he needs it. Right?
Sure.
So that's the most important aspect. So so that's where I think the differentiation comes in. And now since we also have an NBFC license, so that will create an additional edge, so that we can also try out new use cases, go after the set of segments which nobody else is actually driving. We can experiment much faster on the NTC segment for that matter, right? So all of these things will keep us ahead of the competition.
Sure. So Pallav, couple of last questions from you. So how do you see the potential of this business in next coming years? I mean, we have been seeing the business is growing, and today there is a momentum, and of course everything looks positive. But from a market opportunity perspective, how do you see this business shaping up, let's say 2 years from now or 3 years from now?
Guys, can I request you to hold the mic closer to your mouths?
Sure. So I'll have to sort of throw some data when I answer this question. So like I said, in India today, there are only about 9 crore people who have ever got a loan. CIBIL, which is one of the biggest bureaus, they estimate there is at least another about 15 crore people who should get a loan, but are not getting serviced by anybody today, right? That's one. So the potential is, more than 100% of what is being done today. Another aspect is, like I said, the outstanding book today is $150 billion. Incremental book which was created was more than $40 billion. So, I was having a conversation with Abhishek yesterday, and he mentioned that he also talked about days when we would keep refreshing our panel to see when would we reach 100 transactions a day, right? And he says now it's very well settled, so I missed that part. But I feel 1 year from now, we'll feel we were still at that same stage when we look back at today, right? This is like 100 transactions a day, because last month itself we touched 30 crore a month overall. On Lazy Pay itself we have crossed 100 crores of disbursement now. We have more than 500,000 base. So I don't think, firstly, 100 crore a month is very far, right? The way at which we are growing. Another thing I want to add is we've been looking for, when we talk to any NBFCs or banks, which is what I've been doing this week, the sort of reaction is completely amazing. Any bank or NBFC, you go into a meeting room, firstly you will find existing users. And while we want some immediate help from them, every one of them insists on long-term partnership with LazyPay. Right? So right now, I would say the short-term goal is for us to hit 100 crore a month as soon as possible. After that, like we said, $200 million and $1 billion is finally where we are headed towards.
Well, I hope the 100 crore a month you give and that comes back as well. So, so that should be the priority. So, considering we have all the relevant guys from payments team, Abhishek, do you have any ask before these guys ask you questions? Do you have any ask from these guys?
So, guys, time check. I'm going to be.
That's the last question.
Last question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we keep on reaching out to Srini, Prashant, Rahul time to time. I think from a specific ask point of view, there are lots of things that we would want to get pushed in the sprints. So we would want to get sprint prioritizations.
So see Abhishek using this forum to push things.
Yeah.
So, no, so great. So, so guys, effectively Abhishek is saying, help us more. So, but great. I think we are done with our session. Amber is very hard stick, and I know you guys are waiting for your lunch. So, any more questions from the team here? Happy to answer.
This is all we get for now. Jitin, Pallab, and Abhishek all work for PayU.
Yeah, so there are two products right now, okay, which we are aware. What is the next product which you're thinking? And what do you have to say about peer-to-peer lending, which collapsed in China apparently?
So frankly, for us, the goal is not how many products we can launch. I mean, that's not what we are here for. Our aim is to make business, and the business can be made even with one product. But the way we conceptualized the whole LazyPay as a business was that we have to solve two key problems. One is the cost of customer acquisition, which is a big problem in any consumer business. So we had to solve that. And the second problem, which is there in every credit business, is how do you keep your delinquency low? I think to do that, we had to go through this buy now, pay later product, where we were solving the customer acquisition problem, and then trying to get the customer at a cheaper cost funnel. And now for us, whether the credit goes in form of personal loan or the credit goes in form of your point of sale purchase, which is the online checkout, could be offline checkout, I think we want to provide the credit with more informed data points. So really that's the goal which we are chasing for, rather than saying that how many products we can launch.
What about peer-to-peer lending? Does it have any scope in India?
So I think peer-to-peer lending, if you look at it, what it means is there is one entity which provides credit, and then there is a borrower on the other side. Now, whether the entity which provides credit, it means to say the supply of finance, could be institution, could be individual. I think today we are already doing in a way peer-to-peer, because we are having the supply of finance from partners like Reliance. You will see 4 or 5 more partners going forward, and the borrower is individual borrowers anyway. Now, whether we want to add individual borrower on the supply of finance side, I'm not sure on that, because there are different guidelines, different regulations, and plus the risk management required, the expectation management required is very, very different, which I don't think we are ready at this point. So I don't think we have any plans in that side on near term.
All right, just one more question, guys.
Hi, can I?
Sorry, I didn't see you, which means I saw him first.
So Abhishek, as you mentioned that what makes a difference LazyPay from others is 3 products under the same umbrella, EMI or a personal loan or a LazyPay pay later. So from a customer perspective, I'm also using LazyPay. So how you are planning to for my information to me? So I have a EMI also, I have a personal loan also, and I have a LazyPay also, pay later. So I have to pay in 15 days to pay later, but EMI I have to pay in a month. So how from that perspective under same account?
So if I understood the question correctly, so So basically what we do is, while the products are different, but we also generate a single statement for the user, right? So every 15 days a BNPL statement gets generated. EMI dates are also fixed. So basically what you do, what you get is in a single statement, just like your credit card say, you would have all the different kinds of purchases individually stacked together, along with your EMIs also coming in.
No, but in pay later, I can pay by credit card also. But for my EMI, I would not be able to pay through credit cards.
Yeah.
So amount will differ, right?
So I'll answer that. So the pay later, while today you can pay via credit card, and you know it's a very conscious call. And by the way, that ratio, which used to be at some point 80% guys paying via credit card, has come down to 30%. The reason it was a conscious call, because what we did not want is limiting the repayment option choice with the consumer. But at the same time, we were conscious of the fact that there may be some guys who may be misusing this, getting extra credit. I think in a way we are still okay with that, to be frank, as far as they repay us. Because for us, that's an additional data point in terms of what repayment mode you have got. And I can leverage that to give you additional credit line. So each interaction with customer, in whatever form and manner which we have, we see this as an opportunity to understand the consumer better.
I'll just add one small thing, Amber, if I have a few seconds. So what we've also done in the flow is that if you sign up for our PL, EMI, whatever credit line, we have made the loop even easier. So then you don't need to come back for repayment, right? So you just get it set up and you don't need to come back, use your card, net banking, whatever. So the entire hassle is taken away.
Very cool. Gods of time are kind. You get one last question.
Thanks. Okay, Jitin, this question is for you. We have been speaking about the NBFC license, and congratulations for that and the team. What are we trying to explore around this, and as well as how are we leveraging this for our merchants, and what is the edge we are trying to establish by getting this license over the competition?
Sure. So I tell you, the primary objective of this license was not that let's get regulated more. That was not the objective. The objective was, I think the opportunity in credit is so big, and the existing banks and financial institutions are probably not doing enough job to address the opportunity. And this is where we thought that by leveraging the tech and data, we may be having a chance to address some segments of population which nobody is addressing. And for that, we needed to take risk. And to take the risk, you need an entity which is legally permitted to take the risk. And this is where that was a thought process of applying or getting the NBFC license in fold. The other question you asked is, what are we doing with merchant in this case? So I think the merchant credit is one area which both Amrish and Shailaj are actually closely evaluating, and they are still contemplating whether we do it in-house or whether we invest into some company. So while this entity can be leveraged for that, but I think the call belongs to ultimately Amrish and Shailaj, that whether they want to do it in-house or they'll invest into some company.
Very cool. Thank you for that. I'm very sorry. You'll have to catch these guys during lunch. Okay. So thank you, panel, for fantastic insights. Give a very big hand to them, please. And
so I have one more announcement to make, actually. So what we did is, so Rahil, keeps coming to me with the saying that, PayU, the common complaint among employees is that not everybody is eligible for lazy pay. And you need to understand that this is the thing which is credit, and that means we need to get our money back. But we are taking exception today. So everybody in this room, or in fact the overall employee base of PayU, from today onwards become eligible for lazy pay. So this is an exception which we are making, but we know how to take our money back.
Jitin, one question. What is the limit?
Limit varies. Limit varies on your behaviors with each transaction.
All right. We will need you off the stage now.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Guys, I hope this first half gives you the context of how exciting our work is. Right? It's not so much about what we've done so far. It's not so much about what we're doing right now as well. It's so much that could be done. Right? And that personally excites me of why I stay with this company as well. So I wanted to share that. With a quick summary of this specific panel and what I would say about that, I think you guys did a fantastic job about giving insights. My summary is going to be, again, a joke. All right. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, right, so there's a saying, entrepreneurship is like having a child, right? And that child obviously becomes a baby. So it's a baby joke. And hopefully you can learn from this baby joke. So this father, maybe he was a product manager, and this father goes to the doctor with a child, right, baby, and the doctor says, your child is so cute. And the father says, I'm sure you say this to everybody who comes in. He says, no, everybody else just say, it looks just like you. Maybe there's some learning from that. All right, guys. So that's pretty much what we're doing for the first half. And thank you to all the speakers for all the energy and all the insights that you've contributed. We appreciate that. Before you get released for lunch, some logistics to keep in mind. The first thing is, this is the point where Workplace stops streaming. And we are now going to get into non-speaker sessions where you start doing work. Right? What that work is, I'll tell you post-lunch, not right now. The second thing which is going to happen is the camera team will be circulating during lunch. Right? So please be responsive, interact with them. Don't have your face stuffed with food, doesn't look very good on camera. Personal recommendation. The other thing is there'll be photo booth outside as well, which you can use to get a high-res picture for Workplace, then Facebook, then LinkedIn, whatever order you like. Right? Lunch will be served outside. There's a buffet here, and that's where you would go. Again, watch out for the bell to come back. That's a reminder. And would be great to make it even easier to get you back than the last break. Right? So if you can do that, what time do they have to be back? 2:15. Not debatable. All right, guys. Thank you for your energy.
Amber, I have a question for you. You've been asking questions. Right? So, Amber, how do you find the new job?
A question, are you paying me more? Okay.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, guys.
Well done.